Hello and welcome to the NASA 2019 Town Hall. Uh, we got all the staff in a call here. We're going to be talking about uh, people's feedback for from 2019 and our current plans for 2020. Uh, that's essentially it, but more specifically, the locations we would like to do for 2020 in terms of the general area, not any specific hotels yet. I haven't even looked, but yeah, so hopefully we can get all the staff opinion. We have the feedback thread on the last day of NASA. There was we had a circle formed, and a lot of attendees and staff threw in thoughts. We asked them what's something you wanted next NASA, stuff that you enjoyed from this one. So we have a lot of responses from that as well as the feedback thread, and we're gonna be going over all of that. Do you want to start off from just the feedback thread first post that I made, or?
Yeah, why don't we go through kind of because there was already kind of a whole bunch of folks who got together kind of at the end of NASA for teardown and all that. So we can, we already have a whole bunch of feedback that we kind of outlined in the first post. So yeah, why don't we go through that?
Some of it I didn't go into too specifically. Uh, the thing about the hotel venue is that I'm not sure uh, how people who had cars who drove there, if it was a problem for them. But I know people who flew in. It was you know several hours on a bus, or you got if you're lucky you got a carpool, which was still at least over an hour. Which basically the reason for that was the hotel conference costs, and for pretty much every conference room in the area was like $2,500, like $2,500, yeah, $2,500 per day. And we got a deal that was like a third of that. Like we got a stupid good deal. So I was like, all right, let's go with this, despite the you know
Right.
not good travel time to the airport. I still think it was worth it because it's like the general location I really liked.
I think
Hopefully, we can get a better one.
I think the strategy for the venue, if you were flying in, was actually, even if you're Canadian, to fly into Buffalo Airport and then take the Greyhound that goes direct from the airport to the Niagara Falls bus terminal. And
Yeah,
then from there
The
you can
only
take the WeGo train.
yeah,
I
the
The only
only
thing
think
problem with
is,
that is you require a passport to
right.
just, and
yes,
it'll be interesting to go
gener
to the border security. Oh, I'm flying over just to go to Buffalo because it's quicker to get to Niagara Falls.
Well, I don't know
I
how
mean,
many Americans flew in and ended up landing in Toronto or Hamilton instead of going to Buffalo.
Right,
But if
that's
you
a
were
question I
American, the
forgot to ask.
absolutely 100% correct play was to go to Buffalo. And I don't know how well that was communicated, but we had it all up on the um, website. I feel like again it's down there that
The word
communication.
communication will show up
Yeah,
a
the
few
word
times.
communication is going
yeah.
to be in here. You know.
Yeah, another
Um,
issue brought up a lot during the circle we had and the feedback was communication. Because on the NASA Marathon site, we did have a travel thing, and I wanted to ask something I forgot to ask people was how did you actually get here? Car, which airport did you fly into? Stuff like that. Because for the European, oh, I guess yeah, Church and his brother were the only Europeans this time around. But generally, where did everyone fly in to just to see which airports are the more frequently used, as well. The yeah, for nationality, having to cross into America to fill out customs and all that shit would be a slight hassle. But if it's seeing who's doing it more, could factor into which side of the borders we should go on.
Right.
About communication in general is a lot of people didn't really know that the information of the travel stuff, or that we even had a town hall last year at all, or the merchandise. There was seems like we tweeted out, or we'll put it in Discord, but it still doesn't get much traction, I guess. So one thing that was brought up, which we absolutely will do, and I think we already at least started a sign up for a newsletter, an email newsletter. You would go onto the NASA Marathon site and you could sign up for it, and we'll tweet it out a bunch. and basically any information that you would need to know about NASA, we would just put it on the newsletter and email it. I don't know what kind of regularity, but at least once a month, I guess.
Something like that, yeah.
And that's definitely something, probably the number one thing we wanted to do, because communication seemed like it was the biggest issue. Any other stuff that you guys want to go over currently?
Yeah, so I'm working on the newsletter because there's a bunch of like open forum kind of things right there and all that. But there's also been some other talk, I guess, of like, you know, a newsletter is good, but we could also open like forums, or like we usually post updates on like the main index of the website and all that too. So I think we're just trying to like mirror everything a whole bunch of other different places now, in addition to like the newsletter. Or if people are interested, like we could put up real simple forums to just, you know, get away from speedrun.com and just start posting them all there or something. I think we'll try the newsletter though. I pretty much have it set to go. So yeah, we can probably actually release that after this town hall. So.
From the notes that I personally wrote down from the circle, we kind of like just each person would like, we would ask them, what's one thing you want more at next NASA? The first thing I had written down, I can't remember who brought it up first, but was like organized multiplayer stuff, like tournaments, challenges, even Mafia, or like the hiking trip, Wonderland, any kind of like group activity, having it like scheduled like a week in advance, having like dedicated people for like carpools already like scheduled out for that, and even potentially like if there's a lot of people like want to go out to a restaurant, you could have people like, yeah, we're gonna go to this. We want to go to this type of restaurant today, or even have dedicated days of like this group will have carpools to like, you know, the Blind Pig, which is the place we went to on the last night, and
Kind of
not just
scrambly.
not just having not just having it scheduled, but having like big whiteboards, or like you know, like the like, well, you have when you have like a, what is it, not stencil, like a big, you know, like a 3 by 2 feet piece of paper that's up on like a stand.
We were
Like,
just
have
saying a
those.
chart.
whiteboard.
Yeah, flip chart, like right when the right near like at the entrance of the room. That's just like, he's all the like group activity shit that you could join in on if you're interested. Because we did have like papers by the entrance, but they were like A4 paper, just tiny and like on the table, hard to see.
They were hidden around the corner. You
Yeah.
couldn't see them really well unless you knew you were looking for.
So that was a big thing that multiple people mentioned. Another one being like airport proximity, having a shuttle would be like god tier. That's as good as it gets. Another thing is, another thing that was brought up a lot would be whether or not to have like a donations or a charity thing. And personally, I don't have a problem with having a charity aspect. It's just like, it's another responsibility. And I know there's other people. I know like Dark Fox. He's like interested in making a charity thing, and he's already had like experience doing it, so he's like capable of that.
Yeah, we kind of had a charity marathon already in the mix already. I don't know if you want to share any details of that already, Dark Fox, or if we've said enough.
I mean, like with that, I already shared the details of the events. There's no reason not to share here as well. I'll just give a quick like little blurb, little elevator pitch. Essentially, the general idea before people were suggesting that the main event have a charity involved was that we would have this little side event that was maybe like 4, days long or so, and we would get a like big ass Airbnb on like a lake or something and have everyone come out and like hang out and have a good time for a few days, like an extended weekend, and run the stream on site with, speed runs and like Mario Party tournaments, and like take donations for things that weren't necessarily just, oh, well, I'm going to make this run slightly harder. More like, oh, well, if you donate $50 right now, throw like a pie at Naglaria. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Something silly.
Yeah,
just
so
fun shit, right? And then at night we could actually switch over to an online marathon. And that was just the general idea, right? Just a cozy, fun little charity event that was just,
mhm.
entertaining, right?
And instead, I think that's
But
now evolved into maybe instead our main event should really be that, should be more of a charity event and more focused on not necessarily just strictly
Well,
kind of like speedrun content, I guess.
I think Dark Fox could do that in an event, and we make like add the charity
yeah,
aspect
for
to
sure.
the main. But I guess specifically mentioned about a lot would be if we do accept donations or do go for a charity, that like we would need to we make sure it doesn't change the atmosphere. It's like the priority number one is still the runners
And the comfiness.
like the comfiness, as well as
100%.
it's actually another thing was having like a more like online marathons, each with like themed, like having a comfy-thon being one that I brought up that people seem to like, or other shit, which would be fun. That's like a lot of work. I don't know whether or not that would be for a charity or just for fun, but it's it's an idea that's written down here.
Yeah, and that's another thing about these little the 2 mini marathon things, like actually having your own like online stuff. We're always good with, generally, as long as we're available, hosting on our channel any marathon. So we already have a few throughout the year of people who want to run stuff. ARPG me, we want some game HD. For example, we did Speed Keynote, so there's a couple of marathons that we're willing to host. So if anyone else is also interested in running, for example, a comfy-thon, if we don't get around to it, just let us know, and we'll definitely look into hosting it possibly.
Another thing is that if we were going to have donations, a lot of people would like, in general, you wouldn't want to read any like donation comments on stream. You would just be like X amount donation from X person, if anything, and for any comments, you'd have like a text marquee on stream, just because it can, it would take control of the atmosphere of the stream if that's like what you're doing the whole time.
Yeah.
And you like the atmosphere would need to be like runner focused.
Right. We want to strike a good balance between, promoting the charity, because that's part of the aspect of the marathon, but then also, staying true to kind of our like focusing on what's going on at the event and the speed runs and the video games.
Another
That's
thing is like,
why I think we were kind of super into the Airbnb idea because, at least personally in my mind, it's kind of like what Zeldathon that I think is ongoing or just finished, where it's a charity event and it's just a bunch of people on a couch playing Zelda games, raising money for charity, doing different random incentives and everything like that. Uh, at least in my mind, it would have been our own spin on it. Of course, we would have not been playing just Zelda games. We would have been playing whatever we felt like it. Everyone would have been having a good time, and in doing so, we would have been able to raise money for charity, and that would have been a major focus of the event. Obviously, to have for everyone to have fun and raise X amount of money for the charity. Um, in doing it with the main event, where there's already a specific vibe or anything like that, like was mentioned, we need to do it so we don't ruin what's kind of already there. It has to be done in a more kind of thought out manner. So that balance might be a little bit hard to get, especially on the first time. It would obviously have a
Yeah.
bunch of road bumps,
Yeah.
but with the side charity event that we were planning, it's specifically to raise money for said charity. So there's no balance to reach. It's whatever we kind of do. So that's kind of the thing. That, at least in my mind, is how I kind of differentiated the two. So
For sure.
another thing to bring up is merchandise, and this kind of goes into the communication thing because we had like shirts for NASA, and a lot of people were like, "Damn, I want to get that shit," but I didn't know about it, and it's like a communication thing. So one thing I'm planning to do for the next time is that when you like register to buy a ticket, have it all bundled together like ESA does, where like during that you can click whether or not you want a shirt, like keychain or whatever the fuck, even potentially like a bundled group rate for like going to an amusement park like Wonderland or some shit. You could bundle it all together in one purchase, as well as having the email newsletter to like communicate all of it, having the registration to pay for it also being like a one-stop shop.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that would help a lot of people because there were definitely like a lot of things that people weren't aware was happening, and that's why we're hoping when Lurk was mentioning the email newsletter and getting that up and running, that may be another place for people kind of to be aware of stuff, but at the same time. Having it, for example, on a registration page, well, everyone has to register for our event. So if you have the T-shirt there or a Wonderland trip thing there, it's pretty much impossible that anyone will miss it. So at that point, if they don't get it, it's kind of on them then not hearing about it.
Which
Yeah.
it's actually interesting because for the shirts they were done as in order. We had a cutoff date and then we did a specific order for the amount of orders that were requested. So one of the things was we had the numbers and then we're like, why is this kind of low? And then at one point we're like, well, we just have to wait till we're at the event to ask people why they didn't order a shirt. And then it just turns out people didn't know about it. So that was like mystery solved.
Another thing is having like volunteers. Like we can't like since pretty much every runner or pretty much attendee is a runner, you can't do like pay for it themselves for the event, but you could have like a discount for volunteers for people who want to like help with tech or shit like that, as well as just having like a dedicated scheduled for like during this like 4 hour 5 hour slot, whatever this person's going to be handling tech, or two people, and having like a $5-10 discount or something like that. As well as a same thing for anyone who brings a TV, which I didn't really mention as much as I should have.
It's
I think
okay.
there's-
Goodwill brought a lot of TVs for us.
They did. I
Hell
think
yeah.
that there's definitely something, in relation to that to be said about, like, we're definitely going to need more volunteers, especially if we're going to do charity, especially on the main event. We're going to need people to do donation stuff, things like that. So,
Yeah, there's definitely an interesting discussion about like if we're not going to read donations necessarily on stream, but we're going to like display them in some way. What's the best way to
Mhm.
make them kind of like, display? Like I don't really like I don't like scrolling text and stuff like at the bottom. Like I never read any of that sort of stuff personally. But if something I don't know could pop up in a corner or something, and it's hard to say what's best.
We'll let Dark Fox figure that out during the marathon he's playing. You're our guinea pig, dude.
oh, so okay. If you're still watching, Dale, you heard the boys. We got to get to work.
Another idea, which I thought was really cool, but would probably cost a shit ton, is having like an itinerary for the event of like on Wednesday, here's a group trip here. Like every single like group trip, having it on the back of the badge, like front of the badge is like your name and shit. Back is the itinerary, which would be awesome. It would also cost a shit ton more, but
And if there's a lot of stuff it can take up, like it can be really small. So I think one thing we looked to in the past was potentially like getting printouts of stuff, but that's kind of what we're hoping the big board at the front will fix, so that it doesn't have to be on the badge, especially since sometimes things can change. So if you have something just solidly printed on a badge, yeah, the whiteboard in the stream room, Big Law, is exactly what we were kind of talking about. Sort of at the entrance to the door, having a big whiteboard or flipboard or something with all that information, so that way we could change it.
Oh, that was another idea that was brought up during the town circle, is that the donation comments or whatever, rather than having like a host like ESA and GDQ do, you would just have like the couch commentators. They would be the ones in charge of deciding what gets read and done, which would give more control to the runner since they choose who's on the couch. So it's like it's a worth. No, it's an idea worth testing out. I don't know how well it would work, but
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we
there's
would
a
still
lot of
want to do like if people have specific donations they'd want read out, then we'd still want to look
yeah,
out
like
and
the
have a way
runners,
to
like,
do that.
yeah, look for these names and shit.
Yeah, I think if you did something like that, you'd still want a filter of what you're sending out to them, even though, because you just want to make sure that nothing ever slips out to the stream. I think that's part of what makes the whole charity aspect annoying, is that you do have to have someone that actually just reads all the comments to make sure that There's nothing in there. I think that's why not reading reading the comments vocally would be way easier if you just had it text based. Because you could just have someone sitting there just reading through them, checking for good ones, and then putting them in, the feed.
Yeah, if someone's
But
checking it, they could also read out the specific donations that we're we're
right,
saying.
exactly. The ones that
But
are
yeah, we
specifically
definitely need help on site if someone's got to be there doing that. So
right.
It
Another thing brought up is people wanted mystery tournaments and mystery races, which I also like because it's a very different skill set of like playing a new game for the first time. I'm down for that. That's another thing that would require like people to set it up, but
yeah,
I'm
like
down.
I had meant to do like some sort of like Street Fighter Alpha, some type, I don't know which alpha, but some type of tournament in that sense. But didn't really have time, so I didn't. But I'd like to.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think that kind of came down to a lot when we were looking at suggestions was sort of we'll need to make sure we take into account both manpower and time because for example if we implement everything that everyone suggests like currently we just don't have enough people helping with certain things to be able to do everything, so that means we either need more people or more efficiency, but most likely more people.
Something that was brought up as regards for no major opinion specifically is that we could go to more like interviews with people, but as well have like a mafia stream where it's like learn about the runners. Because it's like if you just have like all the runners or whatever, and we play mafia, that's like a way of learning about them as a person. Because that's like you really have to express yourself in mafia, and it was something that a lot of people thought. Even non-mafia players were like, "Hell yeah, that'd be fun to watch."
See,
So
with
that's an
no
idea.
major opinions, I think at the moment the peak episode is the one we did with Caveman in the hotel
Yeah.
room for GDQ.
Yeah,
I think
That's
so.
what I would like to do more going forward. I mean, if people are coming to the event, it would be awesome just to like do a little setup in a hotel room and record like an hour-long episode. It's just that we
dedicated
need to get to the
interviews.
point where I can actually leave the stream room and
Yeah.
not just sleep. So that was the goal for this year. We're almost there.
Yeah,
Next
we're
year,
close.
probably the stream will be a lot more autonomous, a lot less bus factor involved. So
Yeah, maybe we should get into tech too, because in relation to sort of NASA going to the U.S., it would mean that our tech setup is going to change in some ways. Need to either be able for Ares and those crazy guys basically to transport the same sort of like same type of equipment or same sort of equipment, like 8 or so hours I think was the limit we had discussed already.
Which brings up, the last thing that I have written down from the circle thing would be having like a NASA wish list for Ares and like basically everyone on that staff of like equipment to make. So then it wouldn't be like loaned from Dark Ares work. It's like stuff we would own, and then we could travel more.
So the thing is, even if a wish list was existed, I still continue to buy equipment out of my own pocket. Like for example, I now own a
Same.
commercial grade projector. It's 5500 lumens, it's actual HD resolution. Like I watch movies and TV in my basement in the daytime with the lights on at night as well, and it is perfectly bright because of how bright it is. Like if you put your hand in front of it, it's gonna start to warm up. Is how bright it is because it has dual lamps and everything. Um, I just bought a brand new headset. You're listening to it right now. It uses the same microphone cartridges that our podium mics use. I mean, the purchasing of equipment's happening. The problem is getting it across the border.
Oh yeah,
And
which PVT brings up. It's like if you have a shit ton of equipment, that also like it opens up the option. It's still like
right,
making
so
sure that like you guys can know how to use all of it. That it's exactly. I
with
guess you.
with this, yes, Private has a bunch of equipment. He has an Extron Matrix. He has um, RGB cables and stuff like that. The problem is, I don't think that Private owns like a 24 or 32 channel mixer. I don't think Private owns PA speakers. I don't think Private owns a bunch of headset microphones or podium microphones or even handheld microphones. I don't think Private has a projector, like, or fast fold screens. I would still have to bring the stream computer. I'd still have to bring Codename Artemis over, so we can use all the capture cards we already own. There's still a lot of equipment that we have access to or own that has to that just would have. Let me redo this in English. There's still a lot of equipment that it's just people don't have.
Yeah,
So
so we were discussing this a little when we were kind of going through and thinking about this, and it basically came down to that pretty much half the stuff we'd need people like coming to bring, and then the other half of the stuff we'd need to look at renting. And this was kind of one of the things that came into location looking, which is like when we're getting it to the US. Also, which by the way, we've kind of brought it, like talked about the US a little, but one thing we kind of came down to is that it's not a guarantee it's going to the US. We're definitely going to heavily look for there. But if, for example, we look at every place and find nothing good, we're not going to choose a bad location just to put it in the US.
yeah,
Like,
like we
ideally,
actually looked at, we did look at places in the States for this year. We had, I believe, Taurus
we didn't
checked
look
out
at that.
locations.
We didn't
Yeah,
look
he-
at
It
he
wasn't.
Ohio. We had someone checked out something in Chicago as well. Like we had a few places scouted that just didn't
It's
end up.
maybe not as heavily as we will be doing this year, but it's not like we didn't. We're just like, no, it's just going to be in Canada. Like there were
Yeah,
attempts to look
yeah.
in the States.
It was definitely
Exactly.
heavily
So we'll
It's not like
skewed.
we
just work a
didn't.
little harder.
It was definitely skewed
Yeah.
by the like deal that we got on the current, like on the venue
Oh,
space
for
that
sure.
was this year. It was sort of like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like you're like, really, for that, like what was it? Like
Yeah,
it was like
like
950.
it was so
It was
950
950.
950 CAD.
Yeah, Canadian
per day, which is like a third of everything else in the area.
it was really hard to pass up. So while we think like I don't think any of us are opposed to moving the event to the States. It just has to really make sense in terms of like, the hotel was happy to have us back. So in theory, we have that deal again, and that keeps kind of the registration fee down, although folks indicated that they'd be willing to pay a bit more, especially if it meant moving to the States. So, I mean, we're definitely going to look into that.
Yeah.
But it's still like, we could try to still stay in the same venue and improve transportation, try and get some sort of shuttle going or what have you, and try and make that work. But, so not to discount going to the States, we're definitely 100% going to prioritize, I think, looking into this, moving into the States. But our fallback plan is going to probably be the same venue that we went to, because we really didn't have egregious problems with anything. That maybe the power going out, which was more.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is,
Yeah.
that wasn't really the event's fault.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the general consensus of the hotel was that the venue space was great. Some people had complaints about the hotel itself, and issues with that. But even then, it's like if we can't find anything for a reasonable price, because as we're talking about finding stuff in the US and people willing to pay more, the average number that came around was 100 to maybe max 140, which is about anywhere between 1.5 to 2 times what people are currently paying. But like as a note, as we were giving examples last time where we had 950 Canadian per night, where other places were offering 2,500 closer to the airport, that's closer to 2.5, 3 times as much. So shooting up that would shoot the registration up a lot more than people might be willing to pay.
Yeah, I think it's like at worst we have that hotel as a fallback.
But yes, we will definitely be looking hard.
Going like I don't plan like I plan on I want to do it in like Chicago or Baltimore, like in someplace near a big American airport.
Yeah.
Or an amusement park.
Right.
And it's
well,
another thing as well is that it's not like we haven't been thinking about this even from a planning standpoint. We've been slowly building up equipment that we would deem the portable setup, just so we can do something in the States if we find a good venue. We've been trying to get retro tanks and moving over more to HDMI based capture solutions with scalers and everything, just so we don't have to lug like a giant Extron. Because in that case,
Right, because we know
it does mean
everybody
that
has computer monitors, so There's no
Right.
Yeah.
excuse not to bring them.
Yeah, if you're driving and you have the room, you should be bringing stuff
Shove
like
that
that.
shit in your
ideally.
suitcase and get on the plane.
Yeah, what was the like largest stuff you had? I think it was the projector screens that looked like
Yeah,
it was the biggest ass.
Yeah, they were
Um,
fast folds. They were 10 feet wide, which created like a 133 or 39-inch screen. Another thing I just realized while reading the chat about travel, though, is that the region's getting a GO train, so travel from Toronto is going to be a lot easier. It's just I'm not in charge of the one who's creating the public transit.
Yeah, maybe it'll come in the next 3 years, and
Yeah, like eventually that will be a very good option.
I mean,
Yeah.
there what was it? I think there was plans for 2020, which means 2025.
I mean,
exactly.
I do, think that there's something to be said if we can find a good venue in the US, even then maybe like alternating a little bit, doing
Yeah.
Canada every couple of years and US every like switching it up and not necessarily staying in the US for the next 8 years straight in the same exact city.
I mean, if we found a really good venue, I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind going back. This venue, I don't like because of travel. Like if it was close to like an airport, it'd be like hell yeah, we can go back. But it's like
right.
travel kind of sucks. So, the first thing I'm gonna look at is probably Chicago, and then what's the not the capital of Ohio, but it's like it starts with it's either
Cleveland.
Columbus, Cincinnati, or Cleveland.
Yeah,
One of those.
Cleveland.
Cleveland, that one.
Yeah.
Chicago, Cleveland,
I think the
Buffalo.
main
I don't know.
Yeah. Chicago, Cleveland, Baltimore, Philly.
Yeah, if you want to pitch a particular city, yeah, you can do that in
Yeah.
the thread.
Absolutely.
That's like absolutely stuff I want to hear.
For sure. I think Pittsburgh or Philly, like just generally the same region area, mid-Atlantic spot where GDQ is kind of on the radar.
Yeah, because like I don't know, I'm not that big on like American geography. For Canada, it's basically like nearish Toronto or Montreal would be like 80%, like if not of like any like viable venue.
Yeah.
Because there might be something in Edmonton I could find, but it's like most people would not be willing to pay, go to Edmonton. Just because the airfare would be that much more for like overall.
I mean, I don't know if there's something to be said for the fact that GDQ is leaving the DMV, like the Maryland DC area.
Well, that was
Virginia area.
As a side note, like their location was awful because there was no food.
Obviously, their location was terrible.
The HDQ 2015 was the last one I went to, but the hotel, there was no within walking distance. There was nothing to eat. Fuck.
Yeah, it was awful. But keep in mind, our event is nowhere near as big as theirs, so we wouldn't have to cram ourselves.
Yeah, we have a lot
into
more options
really,
because it's less than a tenth the size.
Yeah, I would say we're not meeting 2,000 people.
So anyway, the US is definitely something we're gonna look at. So what's next?
Yeah, so
I think that pretty much cover everything.
Well, that's everything that I have written down from the circle.
Okay.
We've covered everything there. Chat Q&A, or if you have if you guys have stuff you want to bring up.
I mean, we haven't gone down the thread yet, have we?
No, we need to do
that. Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
The whole thing we were planning on going through.
Yeah, so here we go. I'll start us off here. So Dark Pro, he said he straight up didn't go because he had no way to get and stay in St. Cathy's, even though it was Niagara Falls. But for as much money as he had available, it goes without saying that the easier a place is to get to, the more people are going to go. And so, as many problems as being in Canada solves, going back to the US to make it easier for people to come might just be a hard pill NASA needs.
So one thing that I was mentioning before that I really wanted to do and we wanted to take track of is when it's saying that kind of last sentence of going back to the US to make it easier for more people to come. That's something that we don't necessarily have proven. It may be the case that a lot of people, like a ton of people, can't come because of this, but there's also a difference that you're going to get some people who can come to an American location that will no longer be able to come to a Canadian location, and then vice versa. If we hold it in an American location, we might lose a bunch of Canadian people. Now, one thing we eventually kind of want to go through and look at is see what is the breakdown of people attending, and also how many people might be able to come extra that just weren't being able to come. So
I don't have data on like our attendees like where they originate from, but I did remember doing like speedrunners per capita, and around like the New York, like to Chicago, that's like in America, that's where most speedrunners geographically are in that area, with like Florida and California being the next bulk. Surprisingly, Florida and not Texas.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, I think what we really are trying to get at is that we're trying to strike a good balance between like people who are able to go, our availability of tech, and like the
Yeah.
fact that most of the staff live up and around kind of like where Niagara Falls is at. So, you know, we're I don't think it's necessarily a hard pill that we have to swallow. It's more so like this year we got such a good deal on the venue space that was near us where we kind of were last time. It just made sense. But I don't think it's necessary. You know, we'll definitely look into the states. You know, I don't think it's like
Yeah, I mean, to also drive in how good of a deal this is, like we were right outside the tourist area of Niagara Falls, one of the biggest tourist attractions ever. So people had a bunch of shit to do, and they were like a 5-minute car ride away, and the venue was dirt cheap. So it made a no brainer because the people who showed up would have more. It's an incentive for the people showing up. You are right outside Niagara Falls. Go see the falls. Go to the casinos, arcades, whatever the hell you
right.
want to do.
That being said, it was like our third-ish year, like near Niagara, so like having something new would be more of an incentive for newer people to come
Yeah,
if they've already
totally.
been for the area.
Right. Yeah, totally. So moving on, our next post from Razor Flame. So he has current pros. Atmosphere of the event was fantastic. Event was well handled by the current staff. Tech was immensely easy to deal with. Staff during runs were extremely easy to get along with and helped make the experience even better. The majority of the people there were extremely friendly. All good things. Thank you. Now let's get into his cons. Unless anyone has something to comment on any of those things he wrote, those nice things he wrote about us.
Thanks.
Hell yeah. All right, cons. Commune to get there was a pretty big hassle for me. Pretty much for everybody, I think. Second one, there were some runs that I wish had bigger crowds at the venue than they had. I think this is just like an ongoing issue that's just like I don't think we're ever gonna really solve it unless we put like a whole bunch of mannequins in like the crowd, like you know what I'm saying?
I don't
Like a
even
mannequin.
I guess we could probably get a software program to have like like pixelated seat fillers.
Some CGI crowds.
Yeah.
That'd be, yeah, we could just take the crowd from like fucking Punch Out or something. That'd be kind of funny.
Just take that
Wait.
picture of Worcester, like reaching out to the TV with everyone exclaiming in the background, and just like paste that into the layout. You're there.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely unfortunate when some runs don't get a ton of attendance, but it's just kind of when there's something like 80, 70 people.
Yeah, there's not that
eventually
many
there's not that
people,
many
and not
people
all of
awake at
them
a
are
certain
awake.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it really does come down to depending on where. And I think for Razor Flames run, it was on Friday, which was Wonderland Day.
Yeah.
So there was extra less people there because probably how many people did we end up having go to Wonderland? It was around 20.
14.
14. Okay, not as big
Mhm.
as I thought, but even then, that's still like
Yeah.
over like 20% of the
I mean,
attendees. So it makes sense.
I can remember like old GDQ and ESA, and when they were smaller events, where it's the same thing. I think it's just a matter of there's only so many people that are gonna stay up all night, and the more people are there, the more people you're gonna have that are gonna stay up all night. So it's as the event gets bigger, you won't have that happen as often.
I mean, yes and no to an extent. When you take a look at other events of our similar size, let's say, they don't really incentivize things to do outside of the stream like we do. For example, if you go to something at like a DreamHack or like wherever like the latest Midwest Speed Fest is, there's only so many times you can walk around the trade show convention kind of portion of that event, and then the rest of it you're probably going to stick around to where the speedrun stuff is because there'll be TV people to talk to and everything like that. So your main source of entertainment pretty much is there. When you take a look at our event, we try to incentivize other things that go on site as well, or even off site. So you end up with people not necessarily in the stream room. And this year, especially, there were people who literally showed up only for their run and then left because they were local to the area or whatnot. So, I mean, if people are just showing up for their run and then going home, that's also going to cut down on the people who are actually staying in the stream room, right? So,
Well, I think it was just that there was the same amount of people who kind of signed up and registered as last year, but they weren't all here in the same like cluster of days or the entire
Yeah,
event. So.
I think this year we had the most amount of like 1-day attendees.
Right,
so-
right.
Yeah, we like Friday, Saturday, we had a huge amount of 1-day attendees or like 2-day attendees. Yeah, there were quite a few people who only showed up.
Yeah,
the
which
last
is
year.
another thing I think I forgot to mention is that if we do increase the ticket price for like a bigger venue for like $100 or something, we absolutely would want to include like a 1 or 2 day pass sort of thing for the people who do only want to do that.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Right.
Just so they don't get kind of like screwed.
Right.
Right. And then moving on to his third point. Schedule got shifted due to unforeseen circumstances, and I have trouble adapting to change. I understand that due to traffic, some of the runners got involved in that you had to make a tough choice about making certain runs go before others. And then he touched more on this with us in private. And I think the underlying issue here, and nothing about what was shared in private, but is that we just needed to communicate more so that the schedule had changed and that it was, I think we did that, but not necessarily in like the best and most immediate ways. So we can definitely improve upon getting people notice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and I
agree with
mean,
that.
I was gonna say, I think it's just an unfortunate circumstance where we did actually try to this year account for the whole Wonderland trip, and then it got rained out when we
yeah.
planned everything out, and
I
then
still think
also
it
a
went
couple runners did
better
get
than
stuck in
last.
traffic.
In terms of the amount of runs that got shifted around, I think it was better than last year.
Oh, it was still better than last year for sure. We only like as the person who had to balance both times last year when we decided to choose a day, I think I had
So
to
yeah,
shift
I think
like
for next year we should take like
10
2
runs.
days, or it's like anyone who wants to go to like the amusement park, we would set like 2 days of it's like one of these 2 days we're going to go, and then don't book any of those people then.
Yeah, that's a little tougher just because like you especially it was more of an issue this time because like certain people who want to go might have a significant amount of runs, so kind of scheduling around it, but also it's just like you only have so many days in a marathon, so you're going to have to kind of like it's very hard to set
Yeah.
2 full days without a large number of
Well, not
people
necessarily 2
running at
consecutive
once.
days. You could have like Tuesday and Thursday or Monday and
Yeah.
Thursday.
There was a lot to look into there, but in general about the account being the stuff being moved around, I think there's a comment about it later on, but I'll just mention it now, which is that I do agree with a point somebody made that whenever we do change the schedule, we should at least make it known somewhere. Because there might be people looking forward to a certain run, and therefore, if they don't know that it got moved, they might, fall asleep or go somewhere and then not realize that it got moved out. So I definitely agree that making it known when we have to move runs, if we do need to move a run, is definitely the better thing to do in case people are wondering.
Yeah, totally. And maybe part of the like whiteboard scenario could also be part of like the runs for the day, the schedule for the day or something. We'll
Yeah,
look
I
into it.
remember. I think they stopped doing it around AGU 2014, but they would have the schedule for like the next 10 runs posted on like a spreadsheet, like just printed out, and they would put it at each entrance, and they would keep updating it. And it's like, I think we could
Right.
do that because like the amount of overhead we have is significantly less for like the variance in stream malleability for the runs that get moved around. Like for the most part, it's pretty stable.
Yeah, we'll look into it. But Yeah, all right. So moving on to the next post. This is from Two Worlds. Shout out to Two Worlds. Personally, he really enjoyed the massive room that was a fusion of the stream and casual, but for the next event, he thinks a return to having both a distinct stream room and casual room would be great. The event itself is solid, and I'm happy to have been a part of it. Thanks for your comments, dude. Yeah.
Personally, I really like the one room.
Yeah, I was a
I-
huge fan.
I
Yeah.
don't want to go back to having two.
It
Like
just
I could,
depends.
one thing I could see if it's like one room that's like separated like in the middle-ish, like half partially like the first NASA was. I could see that being all right, but it's
Right.
as long as it's all like it's basically one big room that could be like not
Yeah.
sequestered.
Yeah, if
but
it's
like
separated by like a door, and that's it. And
Or
it's,
if like
right
the
there.
two doors were right next to
Yeah.
each other.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Yeah,
Across the
like
hall
the
or-
first
yeah.
So
NASA
we're-
setup
it's,
was
it's
really nice.
essentially one big room, but it's like like divided upon
Right.
itself.
Yeah, and you know, thinking about the deal that we got and this, and the fact that the room we were in has another identical ballroom across from it, we could have looked into that, or even like a quarter of that room, right? But we had kind of like the hallway out front, which is kind of another room, and then actually that back hallway wasn't really ever used, and we could have actually opened that and used that as another room potentially. So
We could use that as the stream
expansion.
room.
Yeah, we could have. Yeah, we could have. There's definitely expansion like in that venue space that we were in, but we can also look for similar things in other venues. But yeah, I also really liked the one kind of the cohesiveness of everything being together.
I guess yeah. I guess rather than I like that one room is that I greatly dislike having two rooms separated by like a minute and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sucked. That definitely sucked.
sure.
Especially for people who are running the stream. Like one thing I liked about this year was even while I was running the stream, like I could stand by the door and watch people play Mafia, but still be able to look over the whole room. Like that was great because I could
I
still
guess yeah,
kind of do stuff.
multiple rooms as long as there's only like one main entrance for everything.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next post. This is from Gandir. Shoutouts to Gandir.
Hell yeah.
He's from Arizona, and he ran Diablo 3 and Frostpunk. Yeah. So what he liked Canada. He likes the country, the climate, the weather, the pleasantness of the summer, and he enjoyed the favorable currency exchange. Hell yeah, we did too.
Definitely.
Americans did.
The high room ceiling, the room being taller, changed the acoustics and temperature in a way I felt was favorable. That's not something I had considered, but yeah, he's totally right.
Yeah.
The room was a lot comfier this year, at least temperature wise. A couple points, some people thought it got a little cold, but compared to last year where I think we were
yeah, on the first day it was set to 69 Fahrenheit. I think someone lowered it as a
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
so.
that's like 20 degrees Celsius. That's pretty cold.
Yeah, but the acoustics I definitely did notice because when you walked through the center of those big domes, it would like just eat, and like when you're standing in the center, it would echo it all right back at you. So it was
That
really
did
cool
drive
because
us
since we
crazy for a
had
bit.
it did, but it was really cool because since we had the stream set up in the center of the room, and often you'd have people being loud to the sides of the room, that sound traveling through those domes would just get eaten up a lot of the time, and it wasn't as bad, really. I think that the room
the
actually
speakers kind of
did a
fed
great
into
job.
those domes. And, yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
So third point, stickers. The NASA sticker you got was neat, and you liked that those things are nice, but can understand that they inflate operating costs.
So the stickers are actually interesting because I paid for those at full cost. No attendee actually paid for them, except if they chose to pay for them extra. I just ate the cost and threw it
the
into
only one
everyone's
I know
registration.
paid for him was an Asper. I think he bought a few. I don't
I
know
think
if anyone else.
I think Laz bought like an extra and something like that. But in either case, like that, it didn't inflate any costs realistically. You're welcome on eating the cost because I thought stickers would be cool, and I literally wanted one for like a handful for my stuff, and I realized, hey, if I want some, other people want some, so I got an order of like 200 stickers.
Yeah, I think suffice to say that we're definitely looking into more stuff like that and communicating out that we have or will have stuff like that. So.
Also, I just remembered now that I wanted to put stickers on both sides of my wireless 6, and I forgot to do that. So next time.
Next year. next year. So moving on, marathon game selection, Link to the Past, SM Combo Randomizer, JSRF, 2-player with 1 controller, King's Quest, Super Mario Odyssey, Bingo were big highlights. Mixing in alternative games and categories, a refreshing change from the sameness, which is slowly affecting all speedrun marathons, online and offline, more and more. Strong traditional runs, Halo 2, DKC, Bomberman, Streets of Rage, FF7, Nier, Automata, also contribute to the strength. He liked the list. Cool. We can only really put in the list what people submit. We were actually a little worried that we might not have like enough submissions this year around, but instead people really pulled through, and we had
in
a
like
pretty
the
good
last
schedule.
few days. And I
Yeah.
think it's like our only real obligation to the stream is to make it fun. So we just chose the runs we thought would be the most fun to watch, and I think at least I was happy with it.
Yeah, totally. So next points are about the marathon PC and the gaming PC. So mine and Aries' PCs and the peripherals and stuff were all good. So cool. I'll keep bringing them. And I answered his question in the next post about what drives they were and all that. So moving on to event management. When the power went out in half the room and he was playing a card game with Niglaria and others, he looked over, saw Dark Fox investigating the issue, played another round of the game, and after that round he looked over again, saw the issue still wasn't resolved, and then politely excused himself to go check on what was going on. He enjoyed the management, who don't overtly micromanage and seem to trust staff to do their jobs. It's a sign that things are being done well. With NASA having had 4... Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm just lazy as shit.
But you should appreciate him for giving you that much credit.
Right.
I do appreciate the sentiment though.
Hell yeah.
I just
yeah.
loved the power outage because I was asleep,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden those crazy guys walks into the room, and he's just like, "I'm going to take the executive decision to let you know that the stream's down and we don't have any power." I was like, "Okay, I'm sure you'll fix it. I'm going back to bed."
Yeah, that was pretty good.
We figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unrelated to these comments, I just kind of wanted to take a comment on the side here, since
Mhm.
these only kind of stick here for a bit. We're just talking about the chat wasn't being babysat and the streamers could see the chat. Well, we always like trying to let the streamers see the chat unless they explicitly say they don't want to. As for the chat, we were super happy with it this year.
Best
Yeah.
chat Max has had yet, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely the best chat of any marathon we've had so far.
Because we definitely
it was pretty hands off.
Yeah, it was pretty hands off, and we were actually like more aware of chat this year than we've ever been before. So that was interesting. How it was much better, and we watched it more, and we didn't have to. I didn't do like hardly any moderation at all.
Yeah, I think
I
had to maybe ban or time at 1 or 2. Yeah, I was gonna also say that, like, shout outs to, I know Nasper did a lot of work. I think Laz was doing a handful of work too.
Yeah, Nasper like watched a lot of the marathon and was in like
on
chat,
his phone.
and he was like basically whenever there needed to be some like moderation, he would do it. So yeah, huge
big shout outs to Nasper and Laz for sure. So moving on to Gander's dislikes. Spontaneous event management. There wasn't much traffic on the forum for this event, which was different from years prior, making it difficult for him to plan events during the event. He did like D&D and some what was the other thing?
He did D&D. He
wanted to do Perfect Dark.
That's right.
Perfect Dark.
I couldn't remember.
Didn't end up getting to do it because nobody signed.
He said, I feel as though most of the communication was done through Twitter and Discord. As a suggestion, it would be helpful, if maybe a little annoying, to add everyone to tag people on Twitter and notify them of spontaneous event. During the event, I remained logged into Twitter and Discord on phone, were I not at the venue. When the hiking trip was prepared to leave, I would have missed out on a good time. Perhaps restrict the privilege and make it so that you can't abuse it. We were definitely going to look into stuff like that. I think we covered like the whiteboard, the newsletter.
One thing that's Discord specific is that you can have roles on Discord, and you could have everyone who wants to be involved in this could have this role, and then you would message the role rather than the.
Yeah, we meant to set that up this year, where we realized you could get certain add-ons that, like, if you reacted to it, it would give you a role, and we were talking about potentially using that to set up a attendee role. That way, we could just say add attendees and be a little more careless with how many times we messaged that,
Mhm.
but we didn't get around to it.
Yeah.
And then moving on to hardware information, kind of a niche issue, where he talked about like the display specifications for the monitor that he was going to use. Would have been helpful to know beforehand, but that he didn't realize that he needed to know that, I guess, is which is fair. I've been bringing the gaming PC, and so is those crazy guys, as sort of maybe a backup or like a dual. When we had a race or something one year, so when we needed to. And we've been bringing. I upgraded this year, so I had like a 2080 Ti instead of a 1070. But I didn't make that known or anything. Or
I
think
still
for
have
the
a 980.
games, we should list like the size of the CRTs because some people might be used to doing a small. They run on like a smaller, large CRT or any like an LCD even. Like it is like it is important information.
Right.
Especially,
We could put that as part of like the run submission, I guess.
yeah, especially in the future, if we're talking about potentially like with some changes to our tech, if we want to get away from CRTs and start doing a more LCD based, like everything into an LCD, then that might matter. Exactly, like a CRT list. Well, it's actually
Dude,
something
the
we're thinking about.
OSSC, like we need to get sponsored by like that one Swedish guy that makes all those. And just have him like somehow give us like
We'll work on it.
that would be the dream.
So, moving into other comments that Gander have, room audio bleed, people talking, and other video game audio from nearby TVs were audible during his run. Its volume was low enough to be tolerable. At times it added to the fun ambience of the event, but other times sound effects would momentarily distract him. Personal preference on this subject may vary from person to person, as some may enjoy the loud party environments and some may prefer a more closed setting. Yeah, that's definitely an effect of the like one room setup that we had. ESA 2015, I think had it was also in one big room, and people were
I'll be back in
also
1 second.
There was a lot more
similarly.
though.
Yeah, there were a lot more people there, and it was more close proximity, I would say. Like we really kept the kind of like the TVs to the like the corners and like the back walls, whereas like ESA was like kind of like next to it or almost. So it was a little
I guess
different, but
we could do one room and then have like a third of the room like partially closed off, like the first NASA, and have the smaller part be the stream.
right, yeah. We can definitely look into it, and we've also like we can offer like I have different pads on the headphones actually, so I could actually make them closed back instead of open, and that would make them more sound isolating. So we could look into doing some more things to make it easier, if but we just need to know. Like we should ask, I guess. So
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
another thing just on top of that is with the audio upgrades that I'm looking into as well. Like I'm wearing the red headset that was used for NASA, but I'm not using the microphone that's built into it. I'm using a separate headset microphone, which means that if you have your own noise canceling headphones that you would maybe prefer to use, as long as it has like an aux, like a 3.5 or an 1/8 inch, they're both the same, connector, or even a 1/4 inch connector, you can then use your own personal headphones and use just our headset microphone, and you won't hear anything except for what we pump into your headset. So if that's something that people want to start doing, that's something they actually can start doing at the events now. So
That's cool, but right now, are you wearing two headphones?
no. I'm wearing the headphones on top of the headset microphone.
The headset
Oh,
like
okay.
wraps around your ear, basically.
Okay, I just
Yes.
thought I thought you were just like wearing two headphones, like headsets.
No.
I'm like, what the fuck? That's just weird.
Yeah. If we were doing this, if we were doing the webcam feed stuff, you would actually see it. I pretty much just it's fine.
Yeah,
You,
we,
you-
we
Right,
have
all
that.
right.
We have that availability, so we're looking into it. So moving on, schedule change notifications. I think we've already pretty much covered this, but he says due to the understandably suboptimal weather, the Wonderland trip was moved during the event, causing a shuffle of the schedule. As a person whose run was not affected by the schedule shuffling, my viewing schedule was affected by it. Half my time was spent outside the venue adventuring around town. There were a couple runs I would have preferred to be in the audience for. Coming back to the venue and seeing a run on, which I didn't expect to be on, that day was a bit disorienting. If large schedule changes could be accompanied by a Discord or Twitter post, that would be helpful. And yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely agree.
So
yeah, I
it
don't think
was
we
it was
tweeted that shit
Gander's.
out at all. Shit.
Yeah, this is the one I was talking about before when I said that somebody mentioned it below. I couldn't remember who it was. It was Gander. So yeah, I definitely agree with this change. That messaging out to everyone that like, hey, the schedule has been changed. We have, especially, I think Twitter would be a better place to do it because probably people watching online would also want to know about these schedule changes. So instead of saying, hey, just keep refreshing because we might change some things over time, tweeting out if we've like, okay, because of things we've had to go from, this run and this run got swapped or a few runs
Yeah.
were changed.
We'll just try and put it out everywhere, just announce it. Yeah. And then he says to respond to Neglari's specific questions, what did we do well? The AV production, hosting, game list curation, listening to runner who's asked questions or had concerns. What did we not do well? Communication, could see improvements in regards to schedule changes and spontaneous group events. What do you want for next NASA? I want to run a Perfect Dark tournament and commentate it like it's big esports. He has experience with that. A how to start streaming panel, which could be serious or a parody, or is in capital letters. Another high ceiling venue. We'll look into that. Stickers that are one single piece. We just have to cut them, I guess. The return of Nando. Who even has that gorilla? Zaspat has that gorilla. And he'll have a cannoli while we're at it. Yeah, no problem. On the way. Sent. Wink.
I don't know with the sticker comment. It may also be just because right now the sticker is actually 4 separate pieces of colored vinyl, I believe. Like they're physically 4 separate letters. I don't know if he may have meant to just have it
Oh, I
like
see.
as a
Yeah.
single on like a white backing, like it's like a printed sticker type deal.
I think
maybe.
that's what he meant. Just like
Uh-huh.
something that would be easier to use, basically. Like the 4-piece one looks smoother, but it's a lot more of a pain to work with than just a flat
Yes.
There is
background.
there's a trick to that, which is when you're peeling it, you want to make sure that you get the vinyl to stick with the you basically want to peel away the part that's attached to the sticky side. If you still have one of these stickers and you haven't peeled it yet, you want to like bend back the thicker white one very far. That way it kind of slides off. That way the rest of the sticker stays attached to the other piece and you can stick it all as one piece.
Yeah.
We can look into it though, yeah, for sure. So let's move on to Tempestral feedback. This is one of the folks who was only able to attend for one day. So he says he enjoyed his time at the event, even though he was only able to stay there for one day. Thanks for having me. What did we do well? The atmosphere was great. It was nice to be able to talk to other runners about their games in person and see them played. The tech was very professional and setup times were quick as far as he could tell. And he said the venue was pretty good. Yeah, as far as the first point go, like, shout outs to everyone who attended. That's all you guys. Like, hell yeah. What did NASA did not do well? Maybe it was just him, but he doesn't seem to recall having access to Wi-Fi at the event.
So I think this was a failure on our part. I don't know if anywhere we actually listed what the event Wi-Fi was. Like if somebody was just showing up for a day but not staying there, they would have had nowhere to actually know what the Wi-Fi password was, to my knowledge.
I think the
Yeah.
plan for if we go to this venue next year, or if we actually go to any venue, I know that at my job, when a person comes in for a conference, they generally get an event Wi-Fi set up, so it's completely separate from the guest Wi-Fi. I believe it's its own like little private network, so guests don't affect that Wi-Fi usage. It's still available everywhere because it's just like an extra access point. But and then it just has its own custom Wi-Fi password. So you'd get the login page, and it would be like NASA, like the Wi-Fi name would be like NASA 2019. The password would be like maybe like NASA conference, or we'd make it Nando or something stupid, right? And then you would always be connected at the hotel to our Wi-Fi. That's something I guess we're just going to add to the list and look into seeing if that's an available option at the venues that we look into.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, we should have just like put up a big sign or something that just said this is the Wi-Fi, and yeah, failure on our part for sure. I didn't use it that much because I have a data plan that works, so I just didn't think about it. So my bad personally, at least there. Moving on to communication / planning and social media presence in general is not stellar. He's a student, and it's not always easy to plan around work and school, and he bets that a lot of other people have the same issues. Knowing which specific day his run was going to be held more than 2 weeks in advance would have helped immensely, especially considering that transit was not very convenient for those of us not driving. And he agrees with Gander in that, in general, communication about planning could see improvement.
Yeah, that's fair. I think one thing, it's for this kind of stuff is that, yeah, it definitely would be better to increase communication. I think one problem we did is that we cut everything off really kind of close to the end. So we stopped accepting runs, about a month before. In 1 week, we had the games list. 1 week later, we had the schedule. So from when we closed the games list, it was a pretty quick, 1 to 2 week turnaround until we had the full games list and schedule. The only problem is that was 2 to 3 weeks before the event. So
Yeah, we try
Yeah,
to strike a good balance between
we'll get that done earlier for next NASA.
Yeah, definitely it needs to be earlier. There's definitely a balance to be struck between when people submit and do they remember that they submitted, and if it's too long a period of time, and yeah, so we just hit it too close to the mark this year. Then he goes on to say that said, even with those gripes, he had a great time and he'd love to come back for another run. Thanks, dude. Hell yeah. Hopefully you can come for more days next year. So who else wants to read one of the posts? I'm gonna hand this off.
I can read.
Go for Lumaphile's post. Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Overall, the event was dope and significantly more fun than last year in just about every way when it was already awesome. Venue was cool and free passes to the water park were a nice perk. Our room felt like a luxury suite with 2 queens and bunk beds. We ordered a rollaway not knowing the room had bunk beds and ended up not using it. Thankfully, they didn't charge us for it like they were supposed to. We asked to be conjoined with another room and they ended up putting our rooms next door to each other, which was good enough. We probably would have only booked one room for the 7 of us had we known about the bunk beds. That's pretty nice. Event room was kind of cool having it all in one place because I could practice and be in the stream room and watch the runs live at the same time instead of on a projector screen or TV from another room. I did feel like I had to whisper, worrying I'd be picked up by a table mic or bother the runner or something, but I later realized anything short of screaming wasn't going to be an issue. Speaking of the table mic, it was cool to have the whole couch mic'd up without headsets, but not everyone was picked up clearly. I understand that's just because of the conic pickup range of the mic, so maybe have 2 next year or something. I don't know.
I found this funny because we actually did have 2.
Yeah, I think the problem is that when we tried using both, we were running into this issue where we were getting feedback if we tried to push it
So
up too high.
I can answer to that. Half of it is my fault. We were running in stereo.
You
It makes
bastard.
a PA speaker for left, a PA speaker for right. I had the graphic equalizer to bring down the frequencies that are pushed at picked up the loudest by the microphone, so I can bring them down so we can push the microphones louder without it feedbacking. 2 days ago at work, I realized using that same graphic equalizer at work, I didn't have the on button for the one channel enabled. So one speaker was equalized, the other was not, which meant that
Ah.
What a
feedback
legend.
happened anyways. But
What a
another
legend.
thing as well is the fact that that's just something that's going to happen. Last year, we cheated the system hard because we didn't have any spoken voice coming out of the speakers, which meant we could just crank the microphones on the table microphones, and you could pick up the whole couch, even people behind the couch. But that's because it wasn't going through the speakers, and we could just crank that volume. In this year's setting, that's just not a thing, and I'm looking into it. I'm getting more headsets, more table mics. Maybe we'll get like a handheld or two to pass around as well.
Yeah, or maybe a
Something to look
shotgun
into.
mic or something. Yeah, we're looking into it.
Yeah.
We're looking into it.
Yeah. Okay, so he ran King's Quest Collection 1 to 7, and tech was super helpful when setting up. I was very nervous being the first person to ever do this run live, and honestly, I'm not sure what to expect, not knowing the things that would be easy to overlook or forget, etc. Setup went well, and the run went off without a hiccup mostly. My one complaint is that I had a commentator via Discord call. He couldn't travel internationally, and he was forced to watch the stream in order to hear what I was saying, and therefore heard what I said with a delay. This made dialogue nearly impossible, but I understand why it was this way. With more time, we should have been able to fix him not hearing me in real time because, to be honest, I didn't know that was the case when the run started, and I was already panicking because I was almost 15 minutes past start time because I had to install so much on the stream PC. The run before mine wasn't on the same PC. I could have done it before, but also I could have done it earlier in the week, so that's all on me. So yeah, so I did the setup for this run. It was one of the things that we had 2 cases where we had Discord audio being collected for runs. I think the other one was the Symphony of the Night randomizer. That happened at the end. But yeah, it was a last minute thing, and unfortunately, I wasn't as confident with how we had all our microphones set up doing. It later turned out that it was possible, if I'm correct, Aries.
Yeah,
It-
because
it
we had
was
it going
possible.
for so yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely would have been possible to get your voice through. I just wasn't aware of how to do that. And due to the fact that your run was super early in the morning and Aries was fast asleep at that time, I figured that with the little bit of delay that it would be good enough. I think the unfortunate part we had is that in the stream room, when we pulled up the stream, we were getting only about 3 seconds of delay. But he mentioned, the person who was in the Discord call mentioned that he was getting about 8 seconds of delay, probably due to internet connection issues or something like that. But the 8 seconds of delay definitely would have made it a lot harder. So unfortunately, we weren't aware that was the case. So it was a little unfortunate that he wasn't able to talk as much because it was harder to communicate back and forth.
Yeah, sorry. We'll do better next time.
Yeah, but glad you the run ended up going okay, and
Oh yeah, I was there for that.
definitely
It was
went
entertaining.
well. Yeah, it was a good run. Lots of
Just
stuff.
one thing I'm gonna point out is that I think the installing game right before the run was very common this year, mainly because again there was a lot of people only showed up for the day, and since we had no races, we only had one computer set up for the marathon station. Last year there were 2, so you could alternate. Hey, somebody's doing a run on this PC, I will install my game on that PC to get things up and running, and we'll swap. But because that wasn't a thing, we just didn't have it set up. So
Yeah, that's something we may just want to look into, even if we don't have races next year, is if we still want a second just for cases like this. Though, one thing that definitely made it nicer this year is last year, even with 2 PCs, the internet connection was a lot slower for installing stuff, where this year it was pretty quick. So, as long as you weren't installing a 40 gig game, you could get it installed pretty quick. To finish this one up, I'm sure there's more to be said, but it's generally all praise, which means do it like you did this year and we're good. So here's what you asked for: what we did well, basically everything. What did we not do well? Basically nothing. What do you want for next NASA? USA venue might be cool, but I have no problem with it staying where it was in Canada next year. Already looking forward to NASA 2020. So yeah, thanks a lot for those comments. Glad you enjoyed your time there, even though unfortunately it was only for one day. Luma added a quick update. Oh yeah, I forgot about the Wi-Fi. It was bad. Not your fault. It seemed like most people had Wi-Fi with the Wi-Fi outside, like in hotel rooms and stuff. I wasn't having much of a problem with the Wi-Fi in the event room, but I know that some people in their hotel rooms were having not great Wi-Fi connections.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely let you know that, like, in the Jet Set Boys room, which was 206, so it was right above and behind the lobby, I could barely get any signal at all. Like, the entire week, I could barely connect to the internet unless I was outside on the balcony. But I
Scion
didn't
said
in
he
the
had
stream room, though.
problems. Scion says he had problems in the stream room, so maybe it was just per person, because maybe some
Yeah.
people did have problems. And also in Asper, would you be inclined to ask week-long attendees if they have PC games that need to be installed to log in? So that's one thing we could have done, especially for games that, well, some people we had them bring it like on hard drives and stuff, so the installs were pretty quick, because installing it from a hard drive takes not that long. But also it could be one of those things that if we do have enough time and know the runs, if, for example, Lurk's computer who we used, already knew which games were being played on PC, we might have been able to install some of them to have them ready. But some people also have like specific setups they like and other things. So it's kind of hard to do ahead of time, especially if you don't own a lot of the games, and we're not about to go around asking people for their Steam username and passwords.
So in years past, like NASA 1, and I think I did it for NASA 2 as well, but I put up like a PC thread on the speedrun forums to say like, I'm running. You're gonna run on my PC, and what do you need? Or here it is, and that sort of thing. Similar to what Gandera was asking with like the specs and stuff. We'll just make sure to do that again, since more than likely it'll once again be the same PC next year. So
Okay, cool. We'll move on to the next one. Kitoko, or Kiddo Fox on Twitch. This being a first real life marathon, I think it was a great way to experience something new. Let's start with the cons. The Wi-Fi certainly sucked here. Our hotel room was so far away from the main desk that we could only get coverage in certain parts of the room, and none of them were on the beds or anywhere convenient. Had to lay on the floor to at least get coverage. Anywhere in the event was fine though, so that kind of matches what other people were saying. The network speed for the event was great, but I heard someone asking around if someone was downloading anything because the stream was dropping frames. I don't think we ever had a case where the stream dropped any frames. It might have
It
been
did.
during. Oh, did it?
What happened was just out of the blue, the stream was dropping frames, and it turned. I normally have my computer set up to use the New York Twitch server because I've had bad experiences with the Toronto server and the Montreal servers. And then now I have a bad experience with the New York server because I had to swap over to the Toronto server, and then the rest of the event went fine. So that
Okay.
was Twitch shitting the bed.
Okay, so it was just Twitch, so that's fine. So not really an issue there. Given the event ran 24/7, I saw it rather inconvenient that registration was not handled 24/7, as I got to meet a guy standing outside the doors waiting for registration to open. I don't know which day he might be talking about. The first day. Um, Registration was kind of an odd thing where we have somebody manned around there for the setup day and then also the like first day of the event, but after that we just don't have enough people to always have registration staffed. If it wasn't very, I think at some point we need to make it more clear that it's like outside of those 2 days just talk to a staff member and we'll get you registered, um, because that's pretty much how it got handled for the rest of the event. But yeah, if people weren't sure about where to register, I think that's something we can make more clear. Also found it quite inconvenient that nobody notified me of my schedule change of my run being transported 2 hours later. I had to scramble and make a new name on Discord just to tell everyone the run would be later because none of the staff let me know. And it wasn't until I skimmed over the schedule at the event that I saw the change. So this is something that I don't think it was necessarily that the schedule was changed very much for these runs. I think we might have had one run move, in which case we could have let people know, but I think it was only about 20 minutes. Other things might be due to the schedule running ahead or behind. Um, but yeah, I definitely think I think actually, oh no, Kiddofox's was one of the ones that was affected by an F-Zero move run, which shifted one day by about an hour. So yeah, that's definitely something we talked about needing to make it more known when things were moved.
right.
A lot of CRTs stopped working. It wasn't really anyone's fault. Just felt it was a big shame to go and buy some CRTs and have them not work anymore.
Yeah, so this is something I was not aware of. We gave
I
away
was
most
not
of those
aware of it
CRTs
either.
too, so I'm pretty sure they all
Well,
worked.
yeah.
I'm confused.
They did. They definitely all worked. The issue that we had with some of the CRTs was that in order to change to the AV inputs, you needed an actual remote. And the only person that really
Yeah.
had the ability to do that was Stump because his phone had a IR blaster on it, so he could
Mhm.
change it. So basically, if the TV got turned off or like something happened and it wasn't on the AV input anymore, you were screwed and you couldn't use it again until, you know, Stump came back into the room and set it back up.
Okay, so basically the lesson there is universal remotes if we buy a
Yep.
bunch of TVs.
Yeah.
Okay. Being the guy on a lot of the night shift and morning shift runs to watch them, I feel like they could have gotten a better crowd to watch. They deserve more people to watch them. Try my best to stick around and keep the lonely early morning runners company and fuel them with Timbits. There's not much that can be done to help this. And that's kind of the case, is that you're always going to have the case that less people show up during late night, early morning runs. Like when you go to and jumping to a GDQ, for example, look at a recent one, look at the 5 a.m. morning run. There will be 2 people in that crowd where there's 2,000 people. When you're having 50, 60 people there, it's very unlikely that you're going to get many, if any, for some of those off time runs, because everyone normally kind of sticks to a schedule and then sleeps.
Yeah, I mean there is something to be said about like our kind of our kind of marathon environment and people wanting to stay in the stream room for long periods of time because they're having fun, they're engaged, and things like that. And we've been working on it, I think. Getting people out of their hotel rooms and things like that. But yeah, it's always going to be difficult at 5 a.m. and shit like that.
7 a.m. Yeah.
It's what it's going to be.
I just also want to point out the fact of how Canadian that state man is. I fueled them with Timbits.
Yeah, Kiddo did a great job. It stopped a couple times and brought some people morning Timbits, and that was very appreciated. Heard the event is probably going to be in the USA next year. It will be difficult to get there due to plane costs if I want to go, but I can imagine it's pretty much everyone else not in Canada. Money's always tight here, so I might make 2020 a potential no-show. It's a really weak con due to the fact that it's purely subjective. I just hope that it gets equal share being in US and Canada. And that's something we discussed, that, yeah, definitely if we move it to the US, it won't be like it's permanently in the US. Ideally, we would keep some sort of balance so that way US people can go to a US event, and then a year or two later, Canada people can go to the Canada event, and people who can't go to the other one only miss out for a little bit of time. And then finally, the fact that not many people cleaned up for themselves made the tables quite messy. That's something that kind of generally happens. We try to keep it clean during the night. I always tried to do at least one pass to clean up a lot of the garbage, but it generally wasn't too bad. Especially compared to, I think, like in years past, it was worse than that. Having more garbage cans was definitely nice. Last year, we didn't really have too much garbage. Yeah, we had 4 garbage cans, I think.
More, yeah. Like 6 or 8 or something. And they
And
actually
they
came
were-
and changed them and stuff.
Yes.
Unlike our last
yeah.
venue. They give us this little
Yeah,
shitty office fucking trash can. That shit piled up so fast.
Yeah, it was bad. So like, yeah, the garbage was even worse last year because they didn't really have any garbage cans. So
Yeah.
definitely would be nice if people threw out more of their garbage and stuff, but we tried to make sure to keep it clean. But yeah, it's pretty much always going to happen. Can you scroll down a little? Thanks. Now for the pros. I really loved meeting people here and made so many friends. Most people were quite friendly, and I got to make some new friends. It completely blasted my expectations out of the water for what I perceived online to actually talking to them for real. Some people were actually a lot closer to me than I realized, meaning I now have people to visit. That's great. It's a great positive atmosphere. Everyone did their best to keep the event positive. Extreme shoutouts to Raikou Rider because he did an exceptionally good job at that, and I'm so proud of him and his runs. Positivity helped keep the energy going and made the event the mood that it really is.
Hell
yeah. It's small enough to be able to get to know people really well, but big enough to be a fun experience. And that's, I think, one of the things that we're always trying to push at this event, is that even though it's not the biggest thing in the world, that it's pretty easy to approach pretty much anyone who shows up and get to talk to them.
Yeah, and again, that just goes back to everyone who attends just being awesome.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, we everyone who attends is great, and people always talk about how much they enjoy the in-person experience because of all the like people they get to meet and how everyone's so friendly. And that's not something we control. That's what the people show up control. So that's great when we hear that, because if we hear pretty much almost nothing but pure positive about all the interactions everyone has with everyone else, that makes us, feel like it's going well with the work we're putting in. Where was the next point I was at? Here we are. Everyone can be who they are, and that's what I really enjoy about a marathon. About this, it's designed to show people how moving speedrunning it is and how much passion players put into it. Keep it this way, and I will definitely want to attend just for this. That's our goal. The staff were understanding and clear with pretty much everything, and also set up everything quite nicely. The room was spacious and free to move around in seating, while seating pretty much everyone in the event. Yeah, it definitely was a very spacious room. Also, MASH, I agree. Shout out to the hotel actually keeping the water stocked.
Yep.
Yeah, they did agree. There was very few times where the water was out, and normally if it was out, even if it was the middle of the night, the one guy would come in and pour in like a glass or two, like a big pitcher or two, just to have some water. So that was very nice. The selections of games to play is also amazing. Selection of speed ones is also really fun. A lot of good laughs, a lot of really amazing things to see, and compelling enough to make me want to try some of those games too. For the event being a literal show and tell for speedrunners, it does its job correctly. The support from other members was amazing. I got congratulations for my run after the run was over, and everyone was polite about it. Everyone treats one another with so much respect. The ice water cooler was an absolute necessity. Got to stay hydrated. Keep it forever. Yes. I do agree that having the water was great, which was a problem last year. It went unfilled very often. So that was another very nice thing about the venue. The projectors were top notch and super clear. A lot of the times it was easier to look at the projector than look at the runner's screen, which is what they are there for. And that's why we enjoy the projectors we have, because they are indeed very nice.
Hmm.
And finally, some suggestions. We could have a snack bar to snack on because snacks are awesome. If we have a budget for it, that was something we were potentially looking at, but right now, not really much of a budget for that.
Yeah, we did miss
And
out on like a Boston pizza buffet thing, or like a large pack delivery or something that they said that they could do in like that room that was locked or something. Like they could have put a lot of pizza
Yeah,
out there.
the
Yeah.
if we go back to the venue, the hotel understands more of what our event is and can better try to accommodate us with things like a lunch buffet every day or something like that. So,
yeah, of course, depending on cost, but they made it sound like it wouldn't be too expensive. So if that was the case, that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point we can have a multiplayer block at the end of the marathon for just having good old multiplayer fun. We pretty much had that with a multiplayer, the Mario Party run, and I think other people left comments that they do want more non-speedrunning stuff. So even having like a multiplayer run in the middle, we didn't really do much for a bonus block just because at the point we didn't really have much suggestions that we wanted to put the hassle to put on, and also I think everyone was kind of done with running the stream, so we just wanted to rest and go to haunted houses.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I can take the next one.
yeah, go ahead. And just overall had a fabulous time, and I hope everyone else did too. So yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, definitely. This is from Quo. Quo says, "The good. The one room setup went a lot better than he had originally thought, and he's a big fan now." We agree. Hotel perks were great. Lots of food choices close by and things to see and do. Awesome. Shirts were super cool. So were the stickers. Yeah, we agree. We just need to make them more available to everybody, right? No major tech issues as far as he can remember, except when the power went out. General event management went on without much problem from his eyes. I would agree. I don't think we really there was some schedule things we had to figure out, but other than that, everything went really well. And then Mafia was good. Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed the Mafia games I was in. The improvable Wi-Fi sucked ass. Yep, we've covered that one. Okay.
Yep.
Communication on various things such as the event changes could have been improved. Yep, we agree. By the way, the newsletter link should work with the certificate now. I know it was saying like, it's danger, but it's not dangerous anymore. It never was. Just by the way. Moving on.
Yeah.
As much as I'd rather have NASA in Canada, going back to the USA might be better for a wider demographic. Maybe flip flop every year since we've been in Canada 3 times in a row. Yeah, we definitely agree. I think. Having something on screen during intermission other than the room cam would have been nice at times, especially in the morning. Yeah, this is definitely something we need to figure out. Like maybe like a side video gaming thing going on at all times, or something.
The only problem is like it's one of those things where you have to kind of watch how engaged that side thing is, because if it's just like a video of the room is easy to manage in the fact that we can switch to intermission and just leave it there. If it's a gaming thing, well, if it's middle of the morning, nobody will be sitting at it.
Dude,
so kind of finding
24/7 Barney runs, you don't even need to plug it into a TV.
that's true. So that's one of those
We
things
just
like, yeah,
solved it.
having something on to switch to might, like that, especially for nights where it's pretty empty, might be better. This was pretty much the
Mega
easiest
CD
setup.
for it.
I mean, the thing with the room cam is I was really hyped for the idea of the room cam, and then during the actual event, I think it did not meet my expectations for what I thought the room cam would do. I think that ended up being a combination of just like where we had to mount the camera to get like an angle.
Yeah, that's what
Because
I
we
wanted
needed
to
it
say.
I didn't we really should have extended it to like a completely different random portion of the room, but it just came to the point where we didn't have the necessary cabling to do it and the necessary kind of like way to just mount it high up, so it had to be at like a really specific angle so it didn't catch tech, at least where it was for the stream.
It kind of. I mean, I had a bunch of like these like little sticky things for the GoPro. Because
Yeah.
we were using a GoPro Hero 4 for the cam. So we could have stuck it like on the ceiling or something, but we didn't have like a ladder, and we had like a 50-foot mini, or is it micro? I forget. Whatever HDMI thing for it. So we could have run it up pretty high, but I mean, it was like at a certain point because we had it attached to the projector, right? But it was like a little bit over halfway above the projector, so it wasn't. We could have found a better angle, maybe, but maybe having that in addition to some other things. And I know we've talked about, and I know Mash has talked about, at least in some capacity, doing like a what is the right word? Like a travel cam or something, or like a cam that's inside the event, or like we've talked about like a 360 cam for Mafia and stuff like that. That we could easily, interject once we get that figured out, into
Right.
the intermission and make that a bit more interesting. So, or yeah, like Dale just wrote in chat, runner interviews. We could totally start doing something like that, figuring that out.
If I had a content team, I would have so much stuff to do during intermission. I just need a bajillion people who want to work for free currently.
We'd run a little mini game show, fucking some Price is Right shit.
Oh
Yeah,
my
dude,
god,
we would do it.
we even had the podium microphone, which we could have just put on a wire. You could have literally been Bob Barker.
Dude, you had like the Shure thing too, so you can walk around,
Yeah.
and do theatrics and shit, dude. Yeah, dude, we have it. We have these abilities. We just need the manpower to put into it.
How much does this cable cost on eBay from China?
The real
From
moral of the
AliExpress.
story. The real
I
moral
bid
of the
1
story
cent.
here is that you should be active and join in on the Discord and make sure that when we put up volunteers, which we'll be blasting out on email now, trying to get out
Yeah, maybe
more
I'll set up
effectively to
forums
people.
or something. I don't know. I don't know if people like forums and shit, but it seems kind of boomerish
Something.
nowadays. But yeah, we'll yeah, something. Maybe Telegram. We'll move to Telegram. Fuck Discord.
Kind of. I'm going to mention this because it's pretty much on topic with what we were just saying. And Asper in chat was like, would you be interested in making a short video about NASA, like what it's about and what your expectation as a small intermission insert? Definitely. I think, for example, previous year's highlight reels could definitely be also intermission content.
Mhm.
There's a lot. It's just that the manpower to do it has to be done like
Right.
by myself. I'm already having trouble trying to keep the YouTube up to date, so
Yeah,
it's-
exactly.
can't overdo it. I'm already swamped with stuff, for example, and a lot of other we need more manpower for that.
Now, I can tell you one thing, which is that if we did a charity, you could always play charity things during the intermissions. It depends on what kind of vibe you want to go for, but that is an option. Is
Oh
something
yeah,
that
those
can
like
go in
game
there
shows where like someone represents a charity and then they win and they donate
Mhm.
X amount to the charity and shit. Yeah, why not? Hell yeah.
too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
Yeah.
could do it. You could mix it up with stuff like that. Exactly.
Right. Well, moving on to more of Quo's feedback, and I know there's more. I'll refresh the page in a moment. He says organizing trips, Wonderland, could have been done before the marathon started.
So we did do that before the marathon started. We asked people if they were planning on attending. The problem is that it got like we just wanted to confirm with people on site because Niglaria did walk around confirming with people just to make sure that anyone who said they wanted to go actually wanted to go. But also, since we had to move it from Wednesday to Friday, there was a bit of extra organization that had to be done on site.
Right.
So, but yeah, we definitely did try to organize it beforehand this year, and then unfortunately had to do some on-site stuff.
Next, he says some runners were only there for the game and then left. We need to coerce them into staying and doing shit with us. 100% agree.
I
We
mean,
need to kidnap people in a video game. In a video game.
personally, I think it's like if they just want to do the run and that's it, I think that's fine.
Yeah, some people have limitations, but yeah.
Like, we should make it more enticing, but I don't think. I guess I just don't like the use of the word coerce. We should make it more enticing.
We need to pay them money to stay.
Pre-NASA, we need to get pre-NASA to generate GDQ style money somehow. except it goes to our event, and then boom, free vacations, boys. Coercion.
Hell yeah.
I'm joking.
I mean,
If someone
if
happens
we
to have
could
$1
make
million,
that kind of money, I'd do it.
yeah, if someone has $1 million, I'll gladly make sure we fly every person to the event.
Yeah, give us the
Um,
Stream Me contract,
give
but
them
with
a free
like
hotel.
fucking $4 million or some shit. Do it up. Some fucking prince somewhere. Who like retro game? Yeah. Anyway, so moving on. He says we need to get Nando back. Yeah, we do. Zaspat has it. Bother Zaspat. All right, I'm gonna refresh the page, get more. There was too
Page
much
2 is-
uphold at this event, to be honest. Word.
What's uphold?
Hold. This is a picture of Jabro. Ladies, find yourself a man who hold you like at Jabro Set Radio. Hold croissants. Thanks for your feedback, dude. There's more Jabros, and they're holding. More capital hold, and yeah, here. Yep.
Eventually, there is more feedback.
Yeah, there is more actual feedback once you go to the next page.
Holder, I like that one. Hey, it's Mash. All right, here we go. We're gonna read Mash's feedback. I think it's feedback. Yeah, it's feedback. All right, here we go. Dedicate some form of itinerary of on-site or planned activities at the entrance would be nice in the future. Yeah, we definitely agree. And there was an itinerary, kind of. I wrote it kind of last minute and put it up on the website. But yeah, having something more detailed and like physical and on-site is definitely something we'll look into. More pre-planned activities for bigger draw and attraction to the event outside. Going to do a run or meet people would be nice, especially if NASA also helps with making it something that could happen at the event with those that want to do the effort. Hell yeah. I think we want to encourage people to do stuff on site. And something that I've been reflecting on, or maybe like getting to, I think it reflects in some of the way like tech works, and I think some of the way that other stuff on site has worked, like Ice, who brings his VR stuff, is like people just need to come and they just need to like just do things. Like, don't wait to get delegated or get kind of, you know, introduced to a spot or do
VR
something.
stuff was great.
Yeah, you just kind of bring shit and you just set it up,
Played Super Hot.
and then there it is.
And Beat
you know
Saber.
what I'm saying?
First time I ever got to play it, it was amazing.
And we need to get better at allowing, like, some folks aren't necessarily comfortable doing that or feel like they need, you know, it's understandable. We need to make it more accessible in that way. But we're definitely like open to the idea of people coming in and just like, you got like an arcade thing, you got VR, you got a computer, you know, PVT comes and sets up a whole fucking another stream almost over in another corner of the room and shit. Like it's awesome. So but yeah, we'll definitely look into like, you know, we've already talked about more pre-planned events and everything like that, but also making things more accessible to those who want to do stuff on site and like in the stream room and everything. Yeah, it's
One
something
of the
that we can look
things
into.
I'll mention right now, if we end up choosing a venue that is local to you or local to somebody you know, that, for example, like has access to things like arcade machines or any of those, tell them to talk to us. We'll definitely see what we can do and see if there's something that we can come up with, so that way both of us can get something good out of it and people can enjoy whatever you found. So, I mean, if it's like a VR cafe and like they want to have like a little booth set up for some sort of thing, why not? Like, I'm totally down with it. But we don't know what's happening, especially if we're going to somewhere that none of us are local to, right? So, um, we pretty much rely on you guys for all that stuff. So,
Moving on, side stream recorded content of side activities at the event in the future would also be something he's personally interested in, and allows more to be seen between the runs that people may be interested in, as more stuff to see or even participate in if at the event. Yeah, totally. I think we've covered this earlier. Much of everything I would have mentioned has already been said, and that goes for pros and cons. I will say that he personally enjoyed the event much more compared to previous events outside the miscommunication parts of side stuff that was kind of thrown in during the event. Yeah, okay, cool. Merch or other stuff on site would be nice as another way to help with costs, such as provided communication of the stuff can be done better in the future. Yeah, totally, 100%. Dedicated volunteer assistants to help staff on shift rotations in the future to teach and allow more hands-on help and learning and growth in general. Yeah, this is definitely a big one. I think it's something that I was just touching on with kind of like the culture of just jumping in and doing stuff, as well as like we need to focus a little bit more on making it like either simplifying the tech, like when it becomes portable, it'll probably be a lot simpler as well. But also like, yeah, maybe we need to like, I don't know, like 2 days of setup instead of 1 day of setup, and half of one of the days is just complete orientation or something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Another thing we discussed was making it more approachable for people who wanted to potentially learn. One of the comments we kind of got from a roundtable, and I only think we kind of glanced over it but didn't really go into it, was that some people felt like they wanted to help or like assist on the stream tech, but didn't want to just like kind of go up or were scared to go up. So one thing we were potentially thinking of doing for next year's event was just some time on the first day, because we always say we'll do it on the setup day but never have time, is just like maybe during one of the longer runs during the first day, say, hey, if anyone wants to learn how to do all the tech stuff, come behind and we'll just teach you. But also say that, like, if you couldn't make it for that, if at any time you want to learn throughout the event, just walk to the back. As long as the staff member there isn't doing anything else, just ask if they can teach you something and they'll go for it. Because I think most of us were generally pretty good at being, or we would want to be willing to teach stuff while we were sitting around, but it wasn't necessarily clear that we were okay with somebody just walking up to us and saying, hey, I want to know how this stream stuff works. Will you teach me? Because I totally would say yes, but I just think people weren't aware that that was an option.
I think
Because
we talked about this as well, but one of the things, like for example, if we're sitting at tech and somebody comes up and they're like, "Well, is there anything I can do to help?" Realistically, our answer is no, because it was so smooth this year. There was really nothing to help with, and during the transition between the next run, you really can't. That's the worst time to teach something because you're trying to do everything as quick as possible. So what we were expecting, or at least what I've responded properly to, is probably more accurate. Is can you please teach me how to run stuff while we're staring into space or watching the thing? And we would do that, but when we hear, "Is there anything due to help?" We're like, "No, we're good." And then the person's like, "Oh," and then they leave. So
yeah,
that's
so
something
it was
that we need to work
definitely,
on.
yeah, we realized it was a miscommunication on that part, and that's something that we're hoping to make more clear next year, so that if somebody does want to learn the tech setup and therefore like help covering for a run here or there, which is always needed, that
Yeah.
it makes it much more accessible, because we're definitely glad to teach people if they're interested. We just need to get that across. Okay.
So Mash would also like to mention that he's more than willing to bring running into with bringing and running more equipment as needed for future events, either aside or main stuff. And he's working on some things. Funding this is a different story. He's looking into future marathons, going to support and the good stuff. Cool. Two World says Memphis would be a solid choice for a USA NASA location. All right.
Quo gladly says, y'all, what the fuck? Thanks for the input, Quo. We really appreciate that. If you want, I can read bro buzzes since it's pretty long.
Go for it.
I think this is the last one. So I have nothing to add other than what I said at the in-person discussion, so I'll just reiterate here. Definitely think the marathon needs to move back to the US. Feels like we've exhausted the Toronto Niagara area in terms of new attendees. Moving the location to somewhere new would bring in new lifeblood for the event in terms of runners, in my opinion. NASA One had a bunch of Midwest runners who showed up just because it was a new marathon in the area, which is something that's been lost in staying around Toronto for 3 years in a row. Chicago's been suggested a bunch, and it's a great location. I'm in the area, so if you ever guys need location scouting for Chicago, Milwaukee, hit me up. Yeah, I definitely like. I think that's
I
pretty
have a
much a common thing
counterpoint
we've
to that.
discussed. Yeah.
I have a counterpoint to that. Um, we've definitely not exhausted all the runners in the area. Um, this year is this year was kind of interesting, where our attendee total was essentially the same as last year, but we had a lot more new faces, and a bunch of those new faces were people from the region, and we started to attract people from the Montreal region as well, which I can only assume will grow as they went back and are like, "Yo, there was this sick event that happened. I'm gonna get more of my Montreal speedrunner friends to show up as well." Um, and so I don't think there's also local events that happen in Montreal and in Toronto as well, and not all those people showed up to NASA for various reasons. So the saying that we've exhausted the area in terms of new attendees is actually false. Everything else I absolutely agree with, but that having a mindset where it's like, oh, there's no new people showing up, that's just wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, but definitely like it's definitely the case where like there are a lot of speedrunners from different locations that surely wouldn't be able to go or didn't go to a Toronto event, for example. So it's definitely still true that we'll be able to pull in a lot of new blood, but Aries does have a good point around the fact that there was a handful of people who we did have a lot of new people this event from the area, which was also good to see. Cost and tech transportation has been the main mitigating factors for moving back to the US. For cost, I'm personally cool with paying more if it means a better venue. 120 would probably be my max. A bunch of the regulars said the same thing. My only concern is that such a high registration fee would deter more casual attendees or ones on the fence from coming. Like if I'm just a random speedrunner from the area, seeing $100+ registration fee would probably sway me away since I have no attachment to the event. I don't know what's a good solution here outside of having lower price 1 or 2 day passes. With tech, honestly, NASA One had jank tech, and I still think it was the best event. Like, don't get me wrong, the current tech is fantastic, and that's awesome, but I definitely take a downscale if it means moving the event to a better location. So, kind of working from the top down on this comment, I mentioned this a little earlier where we're talking about like $100-ish registration fees. That's something we have to take into account that with our 950 Canadian a night hotel, we had registration set at about $70. So we need to kind of watch like how much we can improve it because due to the fact that we don't know how many people will pull in, we can't really expect saying if we move to a new location, we can expect suddenly 100 people to attend because that means there's a very good chance we just lose money on that if we set it based on that value. So we need to kind of find this middle ground of what the cost is plus the cost of the areas, but definitely we're going to take that into account with people being willing to pay a little bit more.
Yeah, we
Than
definitely don't want to get stuck like, owing a whole bunch of money to the venue personally. And, it
Yeah.
would, I think pretty much every single person here kind of goes into the event at a financial loss in some way as a way to support NASA. But it hasn't been massive, in terms of like, thousands of dollars missing from the venue because we only had 60 people show up when we absolutely needed 90 or something and still had the $100 price tag so that we were close to the airport. That kind of nightmare scenario hasn't ever happened or been close, but
Yeah, like that's the thing. Yeah,
we
basically
want to
most of the
avoid
staff. Yeah,
it.
most of the staff will be out a little bit of personal money. Like we're talking in the couple hundreds here for an average person based on like just like purchases and stuff, like in non-reusable things. But definitely, yeah, we need to be conservative because since we don't have any backup money, yeah, if we have a case where 30 people at $100 each don't show up, suddenly somebody's credit card is hurting and has no way to kind of.
There's also the fact where it's like, yes, the main aspect is like if we go to a new location, there will definitely be new people who show up to the event. But if the amount of new people who show up don't replace the amount who have already been going, not to say that it will happen, but this is a scenario because we always think of every situation that can happen. That's going to be really bad from
Or
a
try
financial
to at
standpoint
least.
as well. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, we got like 30 new runners from Chicago, and that only 10 regulars showed up, and now there's only 40 people who showed up, and half the venue has to be paid. Yeah, that's some. Again, it's just something.
But we're definitely
going to
figure it out. Yeah, I think we've emphasized that we're definitely looking at the states. So
Right.
Yeah, and definitely the case like with the last comment about the tech. Like I think I definitely don't want to go back down to NASA one because the whole point about it having jank tech, but it was also like kind of a pain in the ass to run. The key thing here about having the nicer tech is that it runs very smoothly on a back end, which is something that's very nice. Like setup times can be shorter. Entry to learning once somebody actually learns is very straightforward. So it's one of those things that like ideally we do want to have a similar level of this without going too far, because it running smoothly is something that was great this year. On a tech side, we had pretty much no downtime. All the setup times we had set, like we pretty much ate into none of it. So one of those things is definitely something that
yeah, dude, we'd like run an ad for like maybe like 3 minutes. Like I think that's the max you can run sometimes or whatever.
Yeah.
And we come back
And then the
still
next one
have
would be
like
ready.
over a minute and a half left. Still on the thing. It's like, oh fuck, dude, we just set that up in like a minute. Like so. But yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
I think one of the things with our event specifically is the fact that we do so much on a production point with the only amount that we only have. Like that's one of the things that differentiate us. Going back to jank is it just kind of destroys that niche that we've been slowly carving.
I don't
Well,
think
except in
that.
Cheese's opinion, but
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think that he really wants us to go down to jank to begin with.
yeah,
I
just
don't know,
like
man.
if there's
The word jank is in the paragraph right there. But
therefore
I
it
understand what he
100%
I think he was
means
just using an example of how the tech isn't necessarily the thing that makes the event special.
that's
Right.
like
Yeah.
yeah,
I
but
think that was
having
what he was using the
having it
jank
run
tech as an
smoothly is
example
nice.
of.
But yes, I think
Yes.
like we're basically aware of the fact there's going to be some tech stuff, and we're going to need to just put that into account when we're
Yeah.
planning
And
for a
and
US
and,
location.
and like the newer like maybe portable setup, the ditching CRTs or having people who are guaranteed to bring CRTs with it, we'll take it into account and just figure it out. But yeah, should make it easier in general.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have any comments for that, or can I move to the next one?
Next.
Okay. 100% agree with Stingray about making NASA a charity event. It would help draw people both in attendance and viewership, especially, which seemed low. That point I'm going to counter.
Yeah.
We had no front page this year, which was different from last year's where we did have front page, and we were pulling
Different
on
from every year.
average. Yeah, different from every year. This is the first year we didn't have front page. And we were still pulling about 400 to 500 viewers with no front page. Generally, we would find in the past that our viewership would start at around 250 to 300. Front page knock it up to a couple thousand, and then it would kind of like stick around because of that front page. Having around 400 to 500 viewers naturally organically, I guess is the term, is pretty solid number wise. So I definitely think next year we're predicting that we should be able to get some more front page time again, and then it should jump back up.
But to
So
his point, like it seemed lower this year because it was like the number was definitely lower, but the fact that we did draw as many folks as we did when we did expect to try and get front page, but there was issues getting on there like schedule wise and some other stuff that we're working on. But it was nice to see that it would, we were expecting lower viewership than what we had, so that was nice.
I mean,
Yeah.
I compared ourselves to other events that happened around us. Probably the largest being Power Up of Pride, who has sponsorship deals with the Yeti. Like that's huge. And I know it's an online event that they were doing, but they were only pulling in like 100, a little over 100 viewers, and we were pulling in 500. Like Yeti sponsorship, nothing. 100, 50, 500. So I think the viewership numbers, all things considered, are actually really good for what it was.
Yeah, I'll make sure to turn off my 490 alts for next year to make it a little more organic. But yeah, point is, I think we were pretty happy with the viewership, especially due to the situation we were in this year. But anyway, I'll continue on. It would also just help general promotion of the event on Twitch, since staff seems to really only promote events with a charity focus. Stream monsters love the interaction. Having donation comments being read on stream is great for that. Honestly, not falling into the GDQ trap of reading sob stories 24/7 and giving couch donation reading privileges seems like the perfect solution. We did agree that when it comes to, like, first of all, the charities we'd likely go with wouldn't be ones that would likely have sad stories. Like, I find the difference, for example, between AGDQ and SGDQ, where you have like Prevent Cancer versus like, you know, Doctors Without Borders. You're generally going to find a lot of the sadder comments on a cancer prevention charity. So any charity we'd go with likely wouldn't have that issue with more like saddening donations, but also we were having discussion that we wouldn't want those donations to kind of get in the way.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Definitely no opposition to doing like a charity focused event, but yeah, we don't want to detract from the speed running and the video games and the fun going on.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and we're gonna need to have some discussions on what like that would involve, but it would definitely be somewhere between a mix, like halfway between the full integration, everyone reading donations all the time, and a dollar counter on there with no sort of reading whatsoever. It'll be somewhere in the middle there, but we would need to figure out if we implemented that kind of where we wanted to go. But it's definitely something we're looking into. Last main point is that we should be doing more runner outreach. Like, hypothetically, if the event moves to Orlando or something, we should reach out to Florida's Southern runners and see if they want to attend. Honestly, a lot of people are just flat out unaware of the existence of NASA in the first place. A lot would probably be down to attend if they knew about it, though, which ties back to the point about making this a charity event to help increase brand exposure. Yeah, I think that's the next point. So, yeah, definitely outreach is nice. One thing where we kind of mentioned this a bunch last time was that if you are in communities, like, this is one of the things where we talk about, like, the attendees are part of the whole lifeblood of this. We can only reach out to so many people. If you're in communities and know certain groups of people, like, let them know, because the more people that it naturally reaches out to makes more people aware. Of course, if we can make areas know and charities might help certain people attend, but I think the more thing we care about is people attending because they want to attend for the event itself. But
And just to touch on what tier one put in chat, talking about maybe going off towards like competitive speedrunning angle and doing more of the like esports speedrunning instead of like the charity event. I mean, I don't think we're opposed to that necessarily either. Although maybe running it ourselves is not necessarily something we're into, because I mean we're just pretty stretched thin. Like if that involves like speed leagues and other stuff like that. Because otherwise that just kind of depends on like collaborations and who's open to do what, and
So,
whatever works out. So
um, I was actually, spoiler alert, we in part of our outreach, um, I actually got interviewed for ALT's podcast, and he actually asked the exact same question. And I think the answer that pretty much sums it up is that we're not knocking on anyone's door, but if they knock on ours, we will definitely let them in.
yeah,
So,
and I mean we've definitely talked about doing more outreach ourselves as a staff, just to reach out and say like, hey, I know you're Canadian. Why don't you come to this, in the Niagara Falls, Canada area speedrun event? We just don't get around to it. Like sometimes shit just, I don't know, just either through
it
procrastination or life shit comes up. It's just you just don't get around
it's
to it
it's kind of
sometimes.
both. It's one of those things that, yet again, when it comes down to having a certain number of people, you're going to be able to do only so much stuff, especially since pretty much all of us work full-time jobs. None of us really have the full days to sit around and do certain things. So it's sort of like at night, if you have time to do some stuff, it'll get done. So yeah, there's only so much we normally
Yeah, I mean
handle because
we
of
have
that.
regular meetings weekly, but it's still, it's not our jobs. So it's sometimes it's we have the intention or we have the same ideas, but then it doesn't see fruition. because we're only 5, individuals.
Let's go to the next comment. Also, I think it would help if there's a way to bring down more big name speedrunners there to the event to help promotion. I'd be down to do an online marathon to raise money for some popular runners like a Worcester or ZFG to attend, if only just to bring more exposure. If you don't want to go that far, doing something like giving discounts on registration or just general outreach would work. We discussed this a little bit between ourselves when we were going through feedback, and I think the thing we kind of came to here, actually, let me see if I have the comments of what we said. I think it was mostly the fact that it's like we don't have enough money to like pay for most people down, and discounts on registration normally, unless they're nearby, registration is the least of somebody's cost. So unless we have the money to like discount, their whole hotel room, which we don't currently have and would add a lot to the cost of the event. But definitely outreach, like reaching out to people being like, hey, we're hosting this marathon, especially if it does have a charity aspect, for example, and being like, hey, would you be interested in doing a run for this? That might be something we could do, especially once we lock down the location and know who's in the area.
Right. Or if we get a grant or something from a sponsor, or, I don't
That
know,
might help too.
Yeah, something could work out that way.
But yeah, definitely with current money, can't really do many discounts of stuff. And the only like pre-money raising we did is normally pre-NASA, but that even only does so much based on how much we were raising over the kind of last years. Okay, outside of that, here's a bunch of minor things. Agree with everyone saying there should be some itinerary for trips and all that. Don't see any downsides. We agree. Someone suggested having a second stream for Mafia side activities on a GoPro or something. That'd be sick. Fuck it if somebody buys a drone, or I'll personally volunteer to fly it around the venue 24/7 for stream footage. I'm sure the hotel wouldn't like flying around a drone that much inside, but a second stream I think is something that might be interesting, especially if we don't care as much about it being like high quality, because I know Jurge for a while was streaming Mafia on his phone just to his own channel, even having a secondary channel where we just sort of ran that up and somebody turned on their phone and we recorded Mafia games for people to watch might be something cool. I don't
I
know
think I've
what anyone
dumbed
else
the
has thought.
tech down enough that with the current manpower, we can have a jank second stream ongoing for things just around the room and Mafia and stuff. So maybe next year we'll have the Forever in Limbo second stream.
Yeah, I was gonna say quote him on that when it doesn't happen next year. Let's see. Agree with people saying online marathons like Jet Set Radio Marathon should be promoted more as NASA events. Just having NASA presents and featuring the logo would help immensely. I think a lot of us really like that idea with the NASA presents.
I absolutely love that idea.
Yeah, I think
And,
it's just initially we don't want to like encroach on anyone's idea. Like it's like like Mash running ARPG ME, or like Two Worlds doing the We Want Jet Set HD and all that. It's still their events, it's like their thing. But yeah, we could definitely put it under a banner more so and present it as a real NASA thing. Like as long as that's cool with them, I guess,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it would mainly come down to. And yeah, squad streaming, we were talking about that, but it's the fact that currently both channels need to be partners. So it's unlikely that any channel we create would kind of be able to get that partnership very quickly. So it's one of those things that it's unlikely until they make squad streaming non-partner only that we would really be able to do that. But squad streaming definitely is something that seems neat. Okay, next comment. Monthly newsletter is a great idea. I'm sure Lurk will post it again, maybe in the chat sometimes. If you're here and you already want to sign up for the mailing list, it's created. Yeah, I guess, yeah, there we go. Lurk's got it in the chat right now. So just click on that and you can sign up for the newsletter. We're not going to, spam it a bunch, but we'll try and make sure that all good information kind of gets put there.
Yeah, I do want to mention to make sure you check your like spam folders and stuff, just because I know initially it might be sent there as like NASA Marathon. Fuck this. So make sure you check your spam folder.
Yeah. Please
Yeah,
check
for
your
me, it went to my promotions folder the first time we tested it.
Yeah, so just be on the lookout for that. maybe we'll try and push that mailing list to get a bunch of people to sign up, and then we'll say like on a certain day at a certain time we'll post a test email just so people can check what they want. Okay, a little thing, but the camera framing and physical seating setup could have been better. A lot of the time, the camera would only be capturing like 20% of the people actually sitting in attendance for a run. People would be out of frame constantly. This is kind of if you mean for the runs themselves, yeah, it was kind of in an awkward spot where you could only catch so much. Ideally, the main thing we wanted to focus on was the runner. But like if you zoomed out too far, the runner would be really small, but you'd be able to see the people. Um, where if you sometimes zoomed in too much, you'd see like 3 chairs behind and they were all empty. So obviously, neither of those are ideal, and maybe figuring out something that would be kind of a happy medium between the two. But yeah, definitely, it wasn't ideal for some runs that were kind of busy but had no it looked like there was no one there. And this is actually kind of when we had the room camera too, due to the fact of the one we put it on one of the projectors facing left, because when we had it on the right one, it was showing too much of the tech area, and we didn't want like people being able to see the stream computer on the off chance we had to pull up some information that we didn't want to get caught on stream. And unfortunately, most of the event stuff ended up happening to the right of where the camera was pointing. So that's kind of another case where it wasn't as viewed. And then finally, as usual, the event itself was great. Always had a blast attending and meeting everyone. You guys know what you're doing right for the direction and vibe of the marathon. Looking forward to next year. So thanks for that. Do you want to just quickly give one more refresh to see if there's anything there? I'm sure it'll be nothing but memes, if there's any. There you go. That probably won't happen, but we'll keep it in mind.
I'm gonna mention one thing about Florida,
Yeah.
and unless we win the lottery, it's not happening. Mainly because um, if you go to a hotspot like Florida, where literally everyone and their mothers and brothers and grandparents want to have their event there, because Disney World and the beach and everything else, the hotels aren't stupid and charge premiums. They
Now
also
we're going
don't
to
really
North Florida.
But they also don't really discount, because why would they care about us when there's 50 people behind us also wanting their event to happen at the exact same place?
We're going to Pensacola.
So
There we go.
that's one of the things to take into account when you're looking into hotspot areas as well. Yeah, they're great. It's because they're so great, that means everyone wants to use them. So it's going to be tougher to kind of get it there.
Yeah, and even if we won't read it here, Stump, like if you had more that you were typing out, we'll still come back to this thread.
Yeah, like
check
pitches
it, like,
for
over
the
next
next
week or two.
NASA, I'll read for the next like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah,
and
if you have any.
once the newsletter starts going out, we'll put in a bunch of like calls for, when we need people to sign up for stuff, or when the next online marathon's going to be, all that good stuff.
Yeah. I think so. I think that's pretty much the end of that. I'm gonna quickly. We had 3 people fill out anonymous feedback. I'm not gonna go read through it fully. I'm just gonna kind of like skim over a couple of these things. One thing talking about what somebody mentioned, not doing what was downtime between runs was way too long. Said that it's like just a 10-minute venue shot, maybe sometimes switch over to another stream. Our setup times are actually pretty low compared to any other year, pretty much any other event, especially an in-person event. I'd say most of our times were pretty much minimal. The problem is that since we just had a basic screen going on, it feels like it's longer. Generally, you'll find other events get through this by either having a crowd camera where there's actually a crowd, or going to interviews or something like that. Because when you can make an interview take 20 minutes, it hides the fact that it was a 30 to 40-minute setup time, just because 25 of that was an interview, and then you had 5 minutes on either side. So our setup times were pretty low comparatively, but I do agree that, like, based on all these comments, that having something to keep people a little more drawn in would be better. Final comment: a bunch of people talking about saying USA, that they want to go to that. That's in mind. and the location was a little tough to get to. Yep, that's been a comment that we've seen a bunch. And people enjoyed being in the stream room. That's a thumbs up.
Cool. When's Mafia stream on the NASA channel? I don't know, sometime. Maybe. Eventually.
Do one of those crowd control runs to sucker people into giving bits. Like, that's not the worst idea. You know, find a front page time and then do that. Do merch and giveaways on stream. That's like if we did merch like this year, all the merch, as we kind of mentioned, people ordered and then we manually picked up and handed out at the event. For stuff like that, having merch where, you know, it's online and then being able to just like buy a shirt and set the address to wherever that person's address was would be better,
Yeah.
because
Or
we
if
don't
it's
really
like
want to.
charity merch, you know, like prizes.
Yeah. Because dealing with a lot of this stuff ourselves is something we don't really want to do. Like, that's one of those things where it's like, oh, you can get a bunch of prizes. Well, if we get them all to ourselves, then we have to ship them out ourselves. That can just be annoying yet again, especially with this, like most of us being full-time stuff where we
And
don't
lazy.
have, and lazy, where if we don't necessarily want to spend a couple days, you know, going through 20 people's locations and getting 20 packages and mailing them out everywhere.
One of the things I want to mention about giveaways is um, the laws vary on giveaways from region to region, and I don't feel like getting slapped with a subpoena anytime soon, so that's something to be cognizant of.
Thoughts on bringing more outside communities to stream tourneys on the NASA channel? Kind of did that for ARPG, Mash says. I mean, yeah, I think that goes back to like people approaching us about it and wanting to do it. It's like, yeah, we're willing. And I think we could definitely do some more outreach, personally. We just need to kind of figure that out. And a charity, if we figure that out and get that squared away in whatever, you know, big, small fashion, you know, it's probably more of a draw, as far as like getting, I don't know, like more communities involved and things like that.
The only response I'm going to give to the legality about that is just because somebody else didn't do it correctly doesn't mean that we should also not do it correctly. That's just asinine.
Yeah, like how you can like stream movies and shit on Twitch, but it's fine as long as the like people who own the copyright don't report you. But it's still not probably a good idea to stream movies on Twitch. Unless they're like public domain like we do with PDC.
Yeah.
Shoutouts to PDC.
But yeah, I mean we're definitely down for more engagement stuff, you know, and more things like merch and giveaways and things like that if people want to do it, you know. Well, I mean, if no one else has any like other questions or comments or feedback at this time, I think we'll wrap it up here because we're reaching around like almost the 2.5 hour mark. We'll definitely be like, at least I think in some fashion, summarizing what we've said here so that you don't necessarily have to listen to the whole thing if you don't want to, and we'll like put it in the newsletter. One more question here from BroBuzz. Have you guys considered setting up a Patreon to help marathon funding? Yes, we have. There's also like, what is that, like the buy you a coffee thing?
It's
Like
coffee, like
coffee,
Kofi, or
Kofi, yeah.
coffee, yeah.
Yeah, we've definitely considered it. Patreon, I know, is like, I don't know. It feels like we have to like provide stuff monthly, or I don't know how it really works, to be honest with you. But yes, we've thought about it and looked into it, but we haven't made it happen for 2019. So maybe for 2020.
Yeah, it would definitely be something that we wouldn't ideally want to be something where we'd have to deliver every so often. It's more like, hey, if you want to toss a couple bucks to the event, feel free, but you know, no expectation that you're going to get something every month. For monthly podcasts are something that would be ideal. We would need the content for that and getting people together, which we've tried in the past and had mixed results with. But yeah, I definitely think And that's a good point. Like if we have ARPG Me or something like that, it's like, hey, if you want to support, NASA as a whole, we have a Patreon or coffee setup or something. Just if you want to toss it, it probably in the end won't likely be a ton, but any little bit will,
I mean,
help.
you can also just subscribe to the channel. Give your Twitch Primes. Twitch Primes are free. They would go towards the event.
Yeah, showing Twitch that we're like a legitimate marathon that isn't just like some anti-GDQ bullshit is actually probably like the most helpful thing as far as support goes that I could think of. Although monetary support is definitely cool because that helps reduce the cost for everyone overall since we don't make any profit or anything. So yeah, I mean, I think we could look into it as far as like Patreon or coffee or offering more content. I know me and Aries have talked about offering more like stream and technical like tutorial style things as well. So maybe we can look to do that as part of like NASA tech and alleviating that as well. So yeah, there's definitely ways that we could pump out some more content and get the channel going and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely try to like make a summary of kind of what we've covered and the feedback so far, as well as other announcements and things like that. I don't know if we'll set up a forum. I've experimented with some scripts, but I don't like them. I don't know that we necessarily need like, because forums are all like community based and they want you to like increase your post numbers and all that shit. And I don't know that we actually need any of that. There's some other scripts like Discourse and stuff that we're kind of looking into, but I don't know. I'm not super tech savvy. You got to get Aries on this shit. But the newsletter is pretty much set up and ready to go. So we'll get that set up. Probably I want to say next month we'll send that out. Like we'll be pumping it out the rest of this whole like month, and then we'll send out our first letter in July or something like that. And then yeah, and Asper makes a very good point and something that we're gonna wait to get to, but to thank everybody for who was involved, and Asper, you personally for helping out in chat. Who else? Someone take over.
As was helpful as well with chat for sure.
Like a big thanks to anyone who kind of brought stuff, or like Private for bringing his PC and Ice for bringing the I think it was Ice's VR. Yeah, bringing that, like that was also like just having more stuff for people to interact with, anyone who brought board games or stuff, like anything that
Yeah,
made it
license to
more
Bill.
interactive for people in the room. Yeah, like Gander for hosting the D&D stuff, whoever organized the
Nice.
hikes.
I organized the hike.
Yeah, so there's that.
Thanks to
For
me.
the like night times when I did stuff, like I'll just anyone who actually stayed awake for all the night stuff, I respect all of you. Like Mash was generally up late. Some of the Jet Set boys were up decently late. Kiddo was always up early morning. So just yeah, like there's pretty much, I could probably think through like and probably thank each person who attended the event for a different thing. So that's why generally just leaving it to like thanking sort of everyone who attended, and people who were in chat who made it readable
Yeah. Thanks
by
to
not
you,
being complete
the
shitters.
person watching this stream right now, for supporting NASA.
Or VOD.
Yeah.
Or VOD.
I'd like to give a quick shout outs to the old school RuneScape crew for popping the breaker in the stream room because congratulations, the event is now so big that I have to start looking into power requirements. So not many events can say that.
Oh yeah, did
Yeah.
that fucking like RuneScape content dude post the clip yet or whatever?
We haven't gotten a message about it yet, but we should check their
I
channel.
don't remember their chat. We should check that. Yeah. All right. Cool. Shout outs to that guy for asking permission to use our content.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
Shout outs to
legit
permission.
got a message like, "Hey, you have RuneScape content. Can I please use it and credit you on these compilation clips that we do?" And we're like, hell yeah.
Hell yeah, gamers.
All right, I think that about wraps it up. So thanks again for watching. We'll definitely be posting more updates, and be sure to join up on the newsletter. That's nasamarathon.com/newsletter, all one word. Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
See ya.
Good night, everyone.
Later.
See ya.
No Major Opinions was recorded in front of a live Twitch audience.